but I feel like we've probably come to the end of the road of the upper bracket for them. I'm not saying they don't make it to the major, but I think those opportunities are going to have to come in the lower bracket. Falcons in a best of 3. You know, we already saw them dismantle them back on the just a week ago, 30th of September it was, 7-2. That's what they've got to look forward to in the last map on Layer. I just can't. If they want any chance, they got to win, Chalet.
Yep. I mean, what else can anyone really say? It's not that we don't doubt BDS. It's not that they didn't come off of a good performance yesterday. In the words of Freck themselves, or, when they interviewed him and he sort of said, oh, after Club, how is Club? And we were like, we got lucky. We're shit at Club. It's that sort of thing. That's his word for word, by the way. That's, so their expectations of doing that and then coming into that as another follow-through map against Falcons, who have been firing on so many cylinders, you're just sort of like, all right, let's hope, let's see. But one game separating them from an international performance here for both these two teams, how precious that would be, especially with the drive up towards SI and the sort of final throw down there and just getting the precious points and putting yourself one step forward. It starts here.
5 seconds left before insertion.
It's a tough one.
It's just noise.
Attackers are moving to defuse the bomb.
It's like when the plumber walks in and they see something that's going to be a big job. You're like, oh.
That is actually probably more accurately me trying to get up off the sofa these days, to be honest with you. But I hope it's not going to be that difficult for BDS today. Well, you're absolutely right in what you said. It's no comment on BDS. They've been playing very well. It's just you're against one of the best teams in the world, and that's why I feel like maybe the upper bracket journey ends today. But we'll see. We're always here to be surprised. BDS have got a good opportunity here to kick things off well. They've got a 60% win rate on Chalet versus Team Falcons. Only 50% defensive win rate over the last 6 months. Not great. You've got to go back nearly 6 months for the last time they actually won this map. They've lost it recently against Wild. There's a real opportunity for BDS to get off to a good start.
Well, the good start might start here across the top. They're sort of pressuring in down towards those players a bit loose on the side. It's, let's say, the most immediate sort of drive towards a fight here. How aggressive Solotov is deciding to be. Can slip away and will sort of take that route out. But otherwise, it's very, very immediate towards the punch here. They're not sort of sitting around and waiting to see what happens. Instead, hit them on stock, hit them on bar, hit them on games. They're now back inside the side itself. Okay. We've pulled away from their roam game, and it's a roam game the Falcons are very, very good at. Even when these sort of teams and these sort of players are on two different rosters, I actually often think about this map being a great one for that duo of Solotov and Usus when they were sort of on that M&M roster, when it was a map. Yeah, okay, there was a couple of rounds that got a bit silly, but in that same sort of breath, it's a play style and a sort of play space that works really, really well for them.
No openers have come forward yet, so Falcons are actually standing up pretty well to the initial pressure. We're down to a minute left to go. All back on site, apart from Users, who, look at that, manages to pick himself up. A kill onto Freck. P4 fans Shaiko elsewhere, 4 versus 4. But BDS need to get themselves moving. However, look at Falcons' HP. It's really been chipped away at, and here comes that BDS movement that I was talking about. Lasmo gets himself into position inside the side, but it's not going to do any good. I'm not sure he sticks this plant. It's 4v1. He's got no option but to hold on here and then try and find some kills. The pressure mounts, he gets one. Can he find himself a second? Yes, he can. But it's going to be meaningless as Leaker Fat comes down those stairs, picks up the kill, and gets himself the round. Falcons go 1-0.
It was sort of that moment there where, you're in the 4 versus 1. They're all around him. They're waiting for the plant. And where can he go, right? There's only so many bullets. And BDS were in a nice place that very quickly got shut out. And Falcons, in the meantime, sort of reacted perfectly to it. Yeah, they gave territory back. They sort of, as I said, were aggressive around bar and games, but they didn't lose their life. And they didn't lose their sort of head or their game plan. They kept on rolling and rolling back. It almost lured BDS in. There was that sort of opening engagement, locks in the back blue. And to be fair, losing that as well is a big blow towards this take because now you've got nobody putting pressure onto that blue position. The rotate can come around the top as well. Falcons, just a great response on towards the retake from what they had. They're off to a first round with an EFAC triple kill.
Yeah, bit of a problem for BDS, really. You know, we spoke about Shallow, we spoke about the fact that BDS need to be doing well here, coming out with a good start. And the reason that I say it's a problem for them is, like I say, when we look historically over the last 6 months at Falcons on Shallow, 3 matches, so a reasonable sample size there, 16 defensive rounds, they're only at 50%. So BDS have to be aiming for that 3-3 minimum. That's your bar, your 3-3 minimum. But to be honest, you need to take advantage of that. You don't really want to play into somebody's stats. You want to force them to be worse than that. So 4-2 for me is almost essential for BDS here. They do have a little bit of a buffer. When I tell you the attacking numbers for Falcons on Chalet, it ain't good. Let me tell you that. 30% attacking win rate on Chalet in the last 6 months of Falcons. It ain't pretty. So BDS do have a little bit of wiggle room. Like I said, 3-3 is a minimum, and it's not the end of the world. But Falcons picking up that first round confidently like that, you look at it, you think, you know, I'm sure they're putting in the work on Chalet to look for that improvement to their game, to get more comfortable here. We know how deep their map pool is, and they continue to extend it all the time. They seem to improve on different places. So, yeah, BDS need to make sure this one doesn't get away from them in the early stages.
Well, if they can try and rebuild a little bit of that energy and keep finding the pressure, the problem was really they weren't able to get a catch out at the end of it. And again, you can see Falcons aren't giving them that opportunity. Whether this is part of the research, as you said, they've come off a bad sort of stint of it and have moved away from it, or they're just gonna try and let BDS sort of tire themselves out, wear themselves out. Falcons a roster that's well aware of the length and depth of a best of 3, and even longer at points. So they know they don't need to massively sort of exert themselves, heavy stress early on. Play their pace, play the game ahead of them. Make sure that, you know, if you can hit 50-60% now when you need to get to 100, you might have that extra in the tank that they just don't. Steady approach on towards the attack onto the utility. There's at least some of the pressure. A nice little grenade on the top of the wall doesn't get what they wanted it to. And that is, it was a nice trick, but it hasn't quite paid off.
Last time we had a super late, just as I'm about to say it, opening kill. It was Usus after about 2 minutes, and it's about the same this time around, except it goes the other way. Freck manages to make it a double as he picks up 3-day as well. Lukafak is there with 1 onto P4, but could be about as meaningless as that plant that we saw. Freck has got himself onto a 4. Can he pick up the last man? It's going to be Shyco that he needs to find. Plant has gone down, as has Robbie, but the last one comes in. What a response out of BDS. What a response out of Freck. He's trying to just silence things a little bit and gets BDS around. It's 1-1.
Well, there's your clip. There's your Freck moment of the day. And it's come surprisingly early. And, all right, there's elements there, right? You can never hinge an entire round on an ace. You can celebrate it, and you rightfully should. But think about the positioning there again. And, you know, the compliments that I paid to Falcons in some regard were they're sort of playing the game, they're being a bit pacey. But on the other side, BDS just kept on seeing opportunity. They didn't have a lot to work with, but they still tried to make it work. Just before the ace kicked into gear, Lasmo tried to plant for a very split second. And then whether the call was from Freck, oh no, I can keep pushing, I can keep going, I can keep driving, as they so brilliantly did, it just suddenly gives you that thing to put the pressure back into their attempt at being so sort of laissez-faire about it. Unfortunately, doesn't translate into Dutch too well.
We'll have a little look at the highlights that we picked up of Freck's ace there as we will get ourselves on into round 3. Really important, I think, that BDS, and I rarely say that about the first couple of rounds, that, you know, you can pretty much write off the first couple of rounds quite often. You know, we'll see teams go 2-0 down and then bounce back into it. But I do think that was an important round for BDS to be picking up. Get themselves into this one. They, you know, had a tough time out last time against Falcons. They know that it's not going to be easy. So, yeah, I think get them on the board now and just settle everything down a little bit, settle the team down a little bit. But drones will be racing around through basement. We're going to be attacking this time onto Bar and Gaming, as you can see. I'm just wondering if we're going to have... No, we don't have any ranged hard breach. So without Ace on side, there's going to be no opportunity to move up through the basement and open up that storage wall to prevent the late round digging in, as we usually see around site. For now, it's going to be, as we would expect, all about that fight for top floor. Users has got himself dug in deep. He's the library player. He's got Shako in support on blue stairs. And just looking across, we've also got Solotov up there on the mezzanine. He's going to be on the arena, looking to keep hold of that fireplace side of things.
Ooh, Lasma gets
That's not
first.
good.
Yeah, it's. I would go far as saying bad. Actually, I think.
I think that would be a fair appraisal.
I think I would push the boat out a little bit. I mean, they take out that crux player. They take out that sort of power pillar position. Now you've got a bit of isolation on the hold. Now you've got to try and rebuild. Yes, Usus is here, but he doesn't have anyone to swing from the top of the staircase to apply pressure, so they could maybe try and slip themselves in. You can see that there's now some support. P4 with the flashes. They don't have any more frag grenades to bounce their way around, but instead, ooh, there's a misplay, and there's almost a capitalization on a double, but instead, P4's at least able to get the trade out, which importantly keeps it as a 4-3 to Shiko. Now, he's the one sort of stepping up out across the top of the main stairs, seeing if he can find a little bit of an adventure. But the further he gets, the first drone he finds, and he pulls right back. He cannot risk being encircled right now. 50 seconds, he's held him at bay. And will that be a sort of 20-second buyout, Tim, that's going to work into their favor?
I still think it's going to be a tough finish for Falcons here, if I'm honest. They've lost that verticality. There's BDS, 35 seconds. They should have time here. They've got that man advantage. They've been using it well. They've been playing the team game. They've been playing the trades. They know exactly where Shako is. Now, I'm not sure what the plan was there. Fret cuts down League. In fact, they know he's going to be coming from Mudroom. There you go. Easy as that for Fret to pick him up. 3 versus 1. There we go. Round over for BDS. Yeah, I'm really not sure what the play was from Shako there. Maybe he thought that there was somebody out on the rappel or outside of the window on drones or something, you know, but I'm not fit to clean Shako's mouse realistically, so far be it from me to criticise, but I think being out of the map there was probably not the play. It really gave away the position that was winnable for Falcons. It was still 3 versus 4. It was doable from there. You know, I think not really sure the jump out was necessary. BDS?
I mean, it's been really, really nice play so far. Obviously, outside of the first round, where I think they maybe learnt a cruel lesson of how Falcons wanted to play this, which is sort of letting them take bits of territory and then snatching it back. You saw how they operated that in the second. They almost, I'm going to say fell for it again, but then they stopped the plant, kept on the push and went for the kills here. This time, it felt like Falcons tried to hold on, but losing fights out into the window. I mean, that position there, B4 was almost a step too slow on that fight. Should have really been a bit quicker, but pulled it off anyway. If they'd have lost 2 people to Usus doing a 180 swing, then, well, I think we would have had a different round result, but we don't, and we can keep going. Talking of keeping going, Freck, a name that has often been cited by casters, Death Talent, and probably himself trying to get that stage 1 high, is showing all of those hallmarks once again. 7-1, including the ace in the opening 3 rounds, and so prepared for seemingly the game ahead of him.
Pretty unstoppable at the minute. It's Robbie that I'm keeping an eye on as well, and that I'm not picking up on him because he doesn't have any kills yet. It's kind of difficult when Freck's running around and just killing everybody. But Robbie has been a big player for this team over the last few playdays, and the reason that I like him here, like I say, is not because he doesn't have kills, but I look at it and say, wow, Freck's really popping off, and you know there's going to be a point where Robbie does as well. So it's not going to be, you know, this is something Falcons need to think about as well. This isn't actually at max difficulty just yet. Yeah, you've got Freck going big, but you're also So you know that they've got Robbie in reserve as well. So it's going to get more and more difficult for them. One more round for BDS, and that is, for me, their minimum on this half. And it gives them those couple of bonus rounds then. Round 5, round 6, you know, if they get the wins, they get the wins, and it drives them closer towards that chalet victory that they're going to need. Users is taken down but not out. Leak, in fact, does manage to find Robbie. I don't know if that maybe creates a little bit of space to pick Users up or not. We will see whether that happens, but we're effectively 4 versus 4 at the minute. But Freck, he just continues. He won't be stopped, making 8 kills, takes it down Solotov, and we find ourselves now effectively 4 versus 3.
It's just a bit too easy there as well, and you know, they don't want to immediately risk going for Users. He's done a long bloody crawl all the way back for the pickup to come together, and it works. But, you know, it's taken time out here. You could see that Liquifac wants to try and drive himself back towards the fight, maybe going to go above. Virtue takes a lot of damage on the shield as they're trying to push down blue. That's their change up this time. I talked about how important this bit of territory is to have for this kind of plant and play, and well, that's why they've got the shield to try and make it happen, but they still need pressure from the hatch, and that's when Liquifac can absolutely pull this plan apart, because he's still in dining. He's still within sort of danger range of this turning into a brawl. There he goes. Oh, and he doesn't get the full bite, but he slips his way away. That will draw some attention, and 50 seconds left. Now, the fight on the top of the blue. You've got to be aware. Where's the comms? The team round the back. Virtue's ready for it. Lasmo and P4 taking a lot of damage, but still standing. However, 40 seconds. Now they're just going to try and send a plant behind the lockers, but you can't really cover this so directly. There's going to be flashes. There's the player on the hatch. He's slightly blinded himself, and now they have the vertical watch, but 20 seconds, they're still not confident in holding off against the retake. Slight bit of motion, a slight bit of rotation here. Now he's a bit open towards the corner wall. He could be popped out. The Goyo goes, so does Users, gets one, but there's the swing round and the drop underneath the hatch itself. 10 seconds though. They're going for the push, they're going for the pressure. It's a 3 versus 1. A blitz again and a 1 versus 1, but P4's on the plant alone because they couldn't get Lasmo up in time. Here comes the revolver. He just misses out. Millimeter margins.
I was a little bit nervous for Breeder. Then he come around the gap, thought he's going to get guns up. He's going to get guns up. And then you've always got that moment where you think, does the hip fire land? He's just going to hit mouse 1. But he didn't quite get the time. Breeder clutching it out very nicely for his team. Look, there was a real opportunity there. I think it's, you know, as the blitz goes into blue, he's got to get that kill. He goes for the little shield bash, but doesn't quite land it, and then loses his life, and ultimately that leaves his man all in there alone trying to get the diffuser down. So Falcons, they get themselves the second round. It's the basement again. It's the only site that they've been able to hold on to so far. We've had also, interestingly, I know that one really doesn't matter very much, but we've had 3 out of 4 rounds we've seen a plant go down as well. BDS really playing to put that diffuser down on the ground, which I love. That was the big mistake for BDS. You called it at the time, real I've complimented their teamwork so far through this game, and yeah, you know, the way they've been trading really well, and there was a definite bit of a lack of comms there. You know, you get shot at bottom fireplace, you know it's come from dining, there's got to be a shout there. You know, the player on blue stairs, either there's been a shout and it's not got through the, maybe, you know, there's other stuff going on in comms, maybe it's not got through, Freck's not picked up on it, or maybe he's taken that bit of information and just not really acted on it. But yeah, you've got to be prepared for the push coming down blue stairs from there. But ultimately, you know, Falcons hang on. It was close. I think probably closer than it should be. BDS did a really good job of nearly pushing it over the line, creating that space to try and get a plant down. I like what they did, but ultimately just not quite enough.
There's quite a few moments in that as well that you can sort of say that this could have been a moment, and I think the shield at the end, it was technically a 2 versus 1. They're going for the plant itself, but you know, if you sort of had that cover, if you had that chance, and if you weren't trying to drive for the fight, I can see the temptation. And we also saw Virtue play a very aggressive Monty yesterday, and to be fair, it was the round-winning round on Clubhouse, and sometimes those risks, unfortunately, just don't net anything. Raurador goes up, so does the explosion in towards the top. There's an easy take from Freck, swings round, ready for the next follow-through. He's about to find some pressure on towards Ivy, so he covers himself just for a step longer, waiting for the support to come through, but Users, with that DMR, threads a needle. Another door is put in place. They're trying to just put Users in a box. and then send him on his way. Cannot really retreat out, but the Warriors now crosses this divide. Oh, he still wins it out. DMR's at dawn, has seemingly is the driver of this game right now, and wow, they've ripped control. The tentative grasp on the top floor. There is still some of this pressure coming through, and there was almost another catch there. If they'd have put it into a 4 versus 2, that would have been devastating. Solotov and Bride from underneath are able to net the kill, though, on towards Virtue. There's Solotov getting one more, and by refusing to give up his precious territory around Ivy, he's kept a hold. Freck is still doing Freck things. P4 gets one of his own, and now it's just Solotov left. The plant inside the site on the far side. They have the watch on the doorway. There's the pre-fire saying, I know you're watching, but he slips his way on past. Where's the man? Where's the body? There's the catch. Now, a game of 2 stories. Solotov, he's going to hit for the kit. He's on 1, he's on 2. The spray is through. There he is. He's just going to hold on.
There really was a minute there where I know I voiced it, and I'm like, that was kind of almost my internal monologue there, thinking he really might just do this. I'm not sure Freck's going to get in position in time, but look, he had the DMR. He was able to open up the vertical that he needed to get it done. Freck, super cool as he has been through the rest of this game. I see the thing that leaves him up on 12 and 2 now. And this is, look, again, it's something that BDS have been, you know, kind of building on over the last few weeks, is these big performances. We've seen Robbie be the one-man army. Now it's Freck coming through and doing the job for his team. Solotov was kind of unfortunately, he actually played it really well up to that point. Yeah, he's probably about 0.7, 0.8 of a second, maybe a second at a push away from getting that one.
I mean, a reload's worth away, really. That Freck has now done a 5k and a 4k round. 4 plants over 5 rounds, as you sort of said. I mean, I know you're a kit fiend. You're a...
This is right in my wheelhouse, Seb.
5 seconds
This is everything that you sort of, you know, play around. This is...
Dream about.
You're already linking this VOD to people in the ranked stack going, see?
I'd love to say that I've never had dreams where I was planting, and I'd love to say it, but I can't. Because I'd be lying.
Yeah, well, ooh, P4 off to the races, and Nook trying to find their way in. There's some cover. Doesn't go for the first fight. Does slip his way in. There'll be the reveal that he's here, but there's nobody else immediately home. But look at the rotates round, the hot pings. They know he's about to be surrounded. Solus shows up and wins out. Big risk, no reward. Oh, I say that. Robbie does find Shaiko on the slip back in. A single Fenrir. What's the difference there? Potentially towards BDS, just absolutely stealing this round.
Yeah, Freck maybe just got a little bit carried away there. Obviously, it was the game plan, being on the knock to just wander on in, and there was the second. It just shows how sort of fine margins it is between success and failure on players like that. Oh, beautiful shot from Freck. Sorry, it's P4. I'm actually, you know, P4 wanders in, and in a different world.
Thinking about Freck with the game he's having.
I just can't stop thinking about it. In a different world, you know, you'd go in there and get 2 or 3 kills, but it just, the timing wasn't there for him, and he lost out. But Robbie has had enough of sitting back and watching Freck get all these kills. Decides it's time to start getting involved himself. Manages to pick up a lovely double. And Freck, no, it'll be Lasmo who picks up the last one. Freck continues in the round. Got himself a really nice kill on those stairs. Main stairs out through towards dining. Just opened it up. Gave him that space a little bit. And that's the half that I was talking about for BDS. 3-3 minimum. 4-2 is a dream. And you're now going into the second half of Chalet. Falcons on the attack. Historically, with a 30% attacking win rate on this map, it ain't looking pretty for them. And BDS needed this, because if you look at those last 2 maps, Clubhouse and Falcons. Clubhouse and Falcons. I
think they're always going to be there.
Good on Lair that I'm just going to start calling it Falcons. Clubhouse and Lair. Look, Falcons are going to be looking at that, thinking there's 2 maps that we can win. So BDS have to get a strong foundation in, and that's what they're doing. So well played to them so far.
I mean, massive kudos here to BDS. It's almost some of the conversations that we've had in these games where you can have games that go into statistics and games that go away from them, and sometimes it sort of bleeds across both. Here, Falcons, they're performing to a level of their Chalet which we know, which isn't great. For a great roster, Chalet seems to be a map recently that has evaded their sort of dominance and control. BDS, in the meantime, as a team across this game, have just been really, really watertight. They're making sure they're in good positions to cover. Obviously, Freck is having an absolute blinder of a game, but it's built on quick movement. It's built on, like, sort of getting in, not being scared of the confrontation. They're 4-2 up on the sort of entry statistic as well. That is 100% told us where the rest of the round is going. 4 plants over 6 rounds, but also every single opening kill has gotten faster and faster and faster as this game goes in with sort of a more immediate push towards it, and that sort of ramping up of the pace ramps up into the momentum of BDS, who are just thriving in it. Now, though, pressure of defense as it is on Chalet, they've got to see if they can try and hold off against the onslaught of Falcons, and immediate pick on towards the Monty. Probably see them just trying to lock down that trade game I complimented before.
Now, I don't want to suggest that there's a possibility that we see a little bit of a decline in quality here. That first half has been very, very good, but I've just had a look at the defensives. I know I've spoken about Falcons attacking stats being down at 30% attacker win rate on Chalet. BDS, their defensive rate ain't much better. It's at 40%. So, look, this is going to be a half of, who can improve the most realistically over what they've done on Chalet in the recent past. At the minute, you feel like BDS are coming in here hot. 40%, maybe not quite enough for them. They need to be getting 3 rounds, so they need to be certainly improving on those past performances. But you feel like if there's a day where they're going to do it, it's going to be today, because they've really stepped it up yesterday against Gen G. They've come in here and played fantastically well against Falcons so far, and it's not just about it being Chalet. I really want to point that out, and it's something I was going to say in the first half. Falcons are not at the races in the gunfights today. I will say that. Leak of Facts sitting pretty at the best at the minute at 7-5, but particularly Freck, of course. Robbie, we saw it a little bit at the end there. Lasmo's had his moments as well. BDS are winning these gunfights consistently against Falcons, so it's not just about map, it is about the actual mechanics and the in-game at the minute. Shaiko manages to pick up Robbie. That's going to be only the 3rd entry kill for Falcons, so let's see if they can build something on that.
As I said, they seem like they want to try and close down that roam game, close down that trade game, importantly, and you just repeatedly targeting Malusi, who happens to be Freck. It's probably a big aspect of that, but they did get the first kill on towards the top of the main stairs. They're sort of up and down blue as much as they can. That C4 over the top, the Stolotov over the top as well. There's at least a C4 out on towards one of them. There's a take onto a second. Lasmo's dropped in towards the site and gotten himself a kill, but now he's all that's left. They're above the hatch, they're outside the door, they're in the walls, and you can hear Brede on the Monty sort of getting close. Falcons, they've had a very different approach towards this, I think, than we've seen BDS. As the first engagement sprays out, they're inside getting the plant secured. Try and cut the distance, but they're inside the stock, and they'll put you together. But as I was saying, it feels like a different approach from Falcons. They're sort of 3-2-1ing on players. Right, they're setting themselves up to punch positions. They're not doing these sort of very quick go, go, go. It's, okay, we're here. Step 1, ready, 3, 2, 1. Let's go. There's the pinch. There's the Deimos. There's the catch with the shield. Okay, cool. Stop. Let's reassess. Okay, now, and it's more procedural in some manners.
It was better. It was much better from them. Like I said, look, one of these two teams is going to have to improve on what they've done previously if they want to come out and win this. And at the minute, from round 7, that looks like Falcons. BDS really struggled to keep themselves in positions there. I said, winning gunfights has been a real strength of theirs so far for this game. We often see those, those sort of momentum shifts come after we move into the second half. I'm not saying that's happened yet, but it may well be the case that we see the, Shaiko, for example, maybe just feels that little bit more comfortable on the attack of Chalet and starts coming and getting a couple of kills. He got one in that last round. Leak of Fact got in on the action as well. It was a good team effort, really, from Falcons, managing to get kills. Solotov's been a bit quiet so far. He was only on 3, goes up to 5 in that last round. So big stuff for Falcons in round 7. It also prevents them getting, a bit too far behind. You listen to the scoreline, 5-2 or 4-3. It feels like a huge difference. They're only 1 round behind now, and BDS need to make sure that they're not too slow starting on this defense.
I think that's the sort of worry, right? If for all the momentum, for all the energy, for everything that they sort of had going for them in the previous thing, to have what felt like a brick wall that just sort of got tighter and tighter and closer, and oh no, we're surrounded. They have to make sure they don't cut across, but Weefak, he's about to find a fight on the stairs. How aware? Well, the noise of Breeder, they're almost trying to bait him to say, look, swing up. Nobody's here, nobody's home. Oh, he's entirely surrounded from either side, actually, and he somehow slipped one way, but great team catch. And as I said there, it's just isolating plays. Falcons, full focus on a single player. Okay, that's our first take. Now, where do we go?
That was really good for Falcons. Beautiful teamwork, but I'm also interested in Freck as well. On the score pass, he was down in basement along with Robbie, but the decision has obviously been made. You know, this is turning into a bad place, a bad situation. We're going to get Freck out of there. He can teleport back towards that top floor to try and hold on up there. You don't want to be losing 2 down in the basement, that much is for sure, but it's an interesting choice because, of course, whilst he's down there, you've got that option of a trade, you've got that little bit of support, but these are the tough decisions that have to be made sometimes. They've decided that holding on to top is more important. We're going to see Solotov on the ace, open up that office half wall reinforcement, so that's going to give a little bit of access in there, but more importantly, it's going to force the defenders back out of there. We can see Freck and Lasmo have now dropped back into master bedroom. So if Falcons can get this main wall open in from fireplace, which they have done, we can see oh no, still on the upstairs there. If they can get that fireplace wall open, which they are now doing, we see it gives them would have given them an opportunity to get downstairs, but that's both Selma's gone.
That's it. A single claw, a single trick, and everything's falling apart. 50 seconds. They still have a C4 and pocketfuls of smoke. They can try and make this work, and if they really want, let's go for the dilly and dally around with on the side. They've got to start getting a bit of a movement on here, but they're still keeping this firm approach. 40 seconds. Take the verticality. Just tuck inside the door. As long as you've got piano, as long as you've got the lockdown, you might be able to go even further as the shield is all the way towards the top. Force Freck into a sticky situation, and Users picks up 1. Virtue does get 1, but it's traded back and forth, and that leaves the 4 versus 2. The spray around, the prediction and the premonition, but with a shield on and a player under a drone hole, Users outside that window, just causing problems. There's at least a fight on the back end for Virtue here, but Falcons and that Monty, which I'm pretty confident is going to be the ban when we get after the 3rd round.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think they will need to be thinking of a plan B, but the problem is when you've not locked into the shield bans, you know, when we look at what's been picked up by BDS being the Capitao and the Grim, is it really worth getting rid of the Monty? Because what are you going to face? You're going to face Splits, you're going to face Blackbeard. If that's what Falcons are having some success with, they are likely to just take one of the others. So it's always an interesting choice. BDS, one of these 2 teams is likely to be bitten in the backside by history. You know, I said that coming in. The stats did not support both of them having the half that they needed. Somebody was going to turn something over. Somebody was going to fall, you know, by the same standards that they have done previously on whichever half of this map. BDS really needs to get Chalet 1 here. I cannot honestly see them taking both Clubhouse and Lair from Falcons. We are talking about 2 of their most successful maps. So they really need to get it done. So it needs to be them that overturns that history here and gets it done. 40% defensive win rate previously on Chalet. They've lost 2 rounds already. They've only got 1 more in the bank. Otherwise, they're going to be coming out worse off on those stats. So now is your time. Now is your time to start coming forward and getting those wins.
Oh, it is suddenly a very different base Users. Gets C4. Not the best start you'd want, and as Robbie tries to find his way into a fight on the other side, I mean, it's sort of those glaring problems that have come through. Credit to Falcons, they've almost in a weird way have kept the pace up from their other half, right? I'm not saying it was a great half in the opener. In fact, we sort of had complaints about both these teams, but I think they know this as well. But they've sort of just kept this steady hand. They're not panicked. They're not feeling too much direct pressure, I think. They're just sort of taking the problems as they come, and the big problem has been Freck. Gets Solotov back. There's the push aggressively on towards Monty. Bully the boy. Actually all hit on the same stun. He's waiting for some support. Somehow he's found a pocket of safety. They're preparing for the fight on the windows. The Monty, somehow there is the cover. Almost some excellent shield play. to survive. Virtue is down on the stairs. It's technically a 2 versus 3 right now, but there's the cover. The grenade gets one. Shaiko left alone. 3 versus 1. BDS. Well, they have a best player in the world who's underperforming in this map, thankfully for them, to get through, but you know how he's always able to potentially turn it on. Swings wide onto the first, has the trap, and the player slightly further back is just opting to take this next engagement, but unfortunately swarmed, overwhelmed, and BDS keep themselves ahead.
Yeah, good finish to the round from BDS there. Dealt with the shield well. I think they did deal with the shield. They got a little bit unfortunate. The Geschmack mine, first of all, hits above the doorway. I don't know if that was intentional or not. I think it was to prevent the Monty from pushing out and getting aggressive on them. But obviously then it left them in a position where everybody was stunned. So that was a little bit of an issue for them, but look, they dealt with it well. They got it done. It was a little bit of panic stations, but ultimately they get the round won. And like I said, that was their moment. That was where they needed to come through and grab that defensive round. Now is the time to start overturning those previous stats and making sure they can get it done. Falcons so far, what I've liked about them on their attack, probably more relevant, I think, to round 8 than maybe round 9, was their adaptation that they've shown. Round 9, it was a little bit difficult. They kind of just got cut down really quickly and didn't have a chance to change things up or to adapt. But round 8 was the one where they lost the 2 Selmas on the dining wall, and they had to switch it up. They had to go to trophy. They had to come through, find an alternative means of getting in, use West Main, create difficulty for the defenders. And that's something that maybe Falcons have struggled to do previously on Chalet, to have, that depth on attack, those plan Bs, plan Cs. But they did manage to get it done, so well played to them. But BDS, they continue with their lead for now. It is the finest of margins at only 1 round, and we're going to find ourselves going back to bar and gaming. It is the site that they tried back in round 7. Falcons were able to take the top floor from them really, really comprehensively, and it was a tough round for them.
You're a hopeless case.
Well, I called one ban, and they've pulled it together, and you called they'll just bring a different shield, and they have. The Blackbeard.
It's as if we've seen this before.
I think it's the thing is, right, if you have a decent shield player, which Brede is, they'll be able to make the shields work in different manners. The Monty was very obtrusive, but sometimes BDS players can be very sticky and really good at sort of holding on. We saw them drive for the pressure before and just root out the Monty last time, and even then, Brede still almost put a bit of threat in towards them and still almost survived at one point. And I think that's the sort of split of it. They've also removed the Ella for exactly that sort of reason, right? Stop them being able to have these walk-in on these swings, take the ability of BDS to be mobile with their changes out of their wheelhouse, and that's why you've now got Freck on the Legion to be that sort of response towards a game that is a back and forth being battered. But I think not that it's the only win condition, but it's definitely getting itself inked with a big bit of it. This point, eyes on the site itself, just seeing what they can steal. We've obviously had a couple of slowdowns towards it, and the Brava can be the counter on.
Spoken about Brava a lot, and the word I generally use is underutilized. I'm going to say that the Brava has been picked, but still underutilized, because the clutch drone has not grabbed those Kapkan EDDs, and that is not ideal. Solotov will likely be collected, I think. Shaiko finds himself trapped in a goo mine as well. There is the Dockerby call coming out just to slow things down, because I think Falcons were tasting the potential for a bit of aggression coming out of BDS. That's exactly what they get down in blue. Leakifact does take a little bit of damage, but honestly, could have been much worse for him down there. That's really not the end of the world for Falcons.
I think it was a good move as well, because what it did was draw focus away from the downed player. You sort of had 2 BDS players have to go and deal with it, but then there happens
dear Falcons.
Oh no!
Oh dearie me.
Oh! P4 gets one on the top. There goes the end. We might be about to go on a... Well, I was going to say we might have been on a flawless here, but it's only Solotov left. Locked out. You have a round with a Brava, and Kapkan gets a kill and a half.
Yeah. We're going to move on from that.
Ooh. That one hurt.
Come on, Falcons.
And a Twitch as well. You had a Brava and a Twitch.
I don't throw the word. I don't throw the word around lightly, but at this level, that's unforgivable. As as far as it goes at this level, you cannot have one player downed by cap cans and then another one walking into them and dying. Like you just can't. Especially, forget even having the Brava and the Twitch. I don't care which operators you've got. If you've got normal drones, you shouldn't be walking into, you know, Capcan traps on multiple doorways like that. So big mistake there from Falcons, and it has cost them because they now find themselves 6-4 down. They've had to rip the tactical timeout cord. They've decided, you know, that's enough now. We need to have a chat. Well, it looks like it's going to be their stats that follow them, like a shadow behind them, looming over them. Have not been fantastic on the attack of Chalet before, and it seems to be continuing. Maybe just a little bit of panic setting in there, or maybe a little bit of confusion setting in there amongst the comms, or, you know, whatever it is that's creating that situation. But you just know when your player goes through that second cap can, there's going to be a collective groan amongst the team, you know, just, oh, not like this. But Falcons have just got to stand up, try and win round 11 and just see where they go from there. But it was actually really nice defense from BDS, and I think we're seeing, you know, you predicted that Monty ban coming in, and yes, they have switched to use the other shields, but I think it's just not garnering the same outcome that they were able to get. And this is, it's a really interesting point that we've spoken about through the stage when we look now and we say, you know, once upon a time, teams would lose a site, so they might lose Bar and Gaming, as BDS did in round 7, and they'd go back there because that was their #1 choice site. So round 8, they'd go back, they'd try it again, they'd try and switch stuff up. A lot of the time, we don't see that anymore. We're now seeing teams stick to their rotation, and I think we've just seen a really clear, really good example of why that is happening, or one of the reasons that is happening. And with the new banning system, so right, you go to Bar and Gaming, and maybe the Monty causes you a significant problem. So you think, we're not going to play there again whilst they can bring the Monty. We're just going to ban the Monty in 3 rounds' time, and then we'll go back to Bar and Gaming when they don't have the Monty anymore. And quite often, that's what we see. And as we see here, a different outcome comes through. They get the round 6-4. Opener does go to Falcons in this one, but there is a very quick response.
Yep, this is that sort of immediate pull back in, and there's the disconnect coming through. Whatever problem you hope gets sorted out, but they might just, you know, if the team can't find the next pick and find the next bit of pressure, they're otherwise going to have to pull things together with just sitting out for the rest of the round. And no comms, no calls, no Solotov. Here with the idea of going on the back of the Deimos to sort of go for a pinch at the same time. I'm wondering if Candelas might try and roll through. It's not again! No! 2 rounds, 2 kills, 1 cap can, no Falcons.
What is it for fooling me 3 times, Em?
I think it's shame on you because you're obviously taking advantage of somebody that's struggling.
I know, is that how it works? I know the first one is shame on you, second one is shame on me, third one is it circles back and it's shame on you again for now taking advantage. Is going to pick up Lasmo, manages to level things up. 3 versus 3, going to be a little bit of vertical pressure coming down from BDS. We see the spray down. Freck takes a lot of damage, but look at this. Breeder is going to try and get that diffuser down super early in the round. He sees his opportunity, he takes it, he does secure it. Robbie finds Shaiko elsewhere though, and is the retake on for BDS.
I mean, they have to be, right? They've done really, really well here, Falcons, to try and just sort of go for it, and there's users fighting with everything to get out of there. The drop down, it just doesn't feel really worth it. And then they look it in. I mean, okay. I don't understand why the take back was so hasty.
Some pictures and stuff of it because I feel like it's become a real group project, and I don't just mean that to the talent team, I mean that in a weird way for the whole EML broadcast. I feel and even the APAC as well, like, you know, APL has been in on it as well, so I feel like it's become a real sort of Siege community group project, and I feel like maybe I need to put a sign up and call it like the Siege Community Garden or something, but I don't want people feeling like they can just turn up, so I don't know.
10 seconds
I think
remaining.
the main part about it is that it feels like the Truman Show in a regard. You know, by the end, at the start, they're all like, "Oh, it's a novelty we're watching," but by the end, they're all cheering and they're all sort of like, "Go on, Garden!" That's how we're kind of.
Anyway, like the first couple of discussions were just like, they're going on about his garden, really? And then we started like getting to breaks, and people were like, "Can you ask us what's going on with the garden?"
What are we up to? People need to know.
I've
I'm talking to my
loved it.
nan about it. Well, hit 6-5. We obviously had a bit of a delay. Thank you for sticking with us. But we are still on the precipice of pushing this one over towards the end. Now, it's been very generically attacker-sided throughout, as we've expected. A 4-2 opening half for BDS, and here on their defense, well, 2 of their only 2 defenses that they've won have come in the last 3 rounds. Falcons, though, they grabbed the most recent attack, and it came down to what really could have been BDS's on the back of it. So is that going to have given them time to sort of get their heads together? Here's pressure. Pressure as Robbie entirely surrounded. Look at the positionings here of the Falcons player. There's one off to his right-hand side. There's the pressure that's coming in above. There's one watching deep, and they weren't able to net the immediate kill on the back of it. Instead, the support's coming around here for BDS. Robbie is going to try and maybe find a fight with the shield, but you can see that P4 is trying to offer some help here. It's just wasting time, theoretically, at this point. There's a shield, there's a bit of a rotate, there's a fight down on the corridor itself, and they've still not rooted him out. The Twitch drone as well is joining the bullying. But it's a lot of focus, and P4 gets the kill out of the end of it. They just full sent. The support of P4 swings round from dining, and all those eyes, Tim, and unfortunately still a bit blind. The fight against it gets Virtue. The C4 won't get the shield, but Lasmo does find evac, and the perfect person to fight against it, but there's the way of running a blitz shield in a 1 versus 1. BDS finally takes the terrain, but it's taken a lot of time.
Yeah, Falcons have just got their steps in the wrong order there. P4 was the one that needed to be dealt with first, really. But Robbie and P4 were actually covering each other extremely well, and the Falcons they were at a brick wall. They didn't know what to do. They had all that utility being thrown at the Warden, but they knew what was going to happen. They knew that they were going to get stung by P4 if they tried to push him, and that's exactly what did happen. They didn't have an answer to it, and they didn't really know where to go with it. Lasmo manages to get himself a second in the round, takes down users. That's going to be the ace offline. I don't know how much breaching has been done. I think they do have that main wall breach open. BDS is able to go in and plant. They're not really doing anything about this. This could be a big problem, except P4 manages to get the kill onto Solotov. 1 versus 2 as BDS gets 1, but he's got to find 2 more with a pistol. It's not going to be easy.
That's it. I mean, they've just moved away, right? They've played this perfectly. Don't give him the fight. It still takes 1. He can always be capable, but don't give him the option. BDS! They finally put that one to bed just within regulation, but with how much it might have taken out of them, Tim, and the focus on Clubhouse next, how long a drive will this be?
Secure a place at the Munich Major. They're going to put themselves, through into that upper bracket final, which is going to guarantee a top 4 finish. So right now, BDS are 1 map away from going to the Munich Major. However, that map is Clubhouse, and they are against Falcons. Now, I'm going to build the mountain up a little bit for them here, because if we look at that history, as I have been doing, and we look at Clubhouse's history over the last 6 months, it's not so much about the first half for me. BDS absolutely right to start on defense. 50% defender win rate, not terrible for them. Not brilliant, kind of middle of the pack, absolutely fine. The problem that they've got is the second half of this. So attacking win rate for BDS is 18% on Clubhouse, whereas the defensive win rate they're up against is 68.8. So nearly 70% defensive win rate for Falcons on this map, which, what does that mean in real terms, Ish? You've given me the numbers, but what does it mean? It means BDS need as many rounds in this first half as is possible, and of course we can always say that, but it's crucial here. This isn't about comfort. This is about giving yourself a chance to win. I think I'm going to say a 5-1 is borderline essential for BDS.
Viper strike. They need our support out there.
Well, the journey to an international performance could start with this round and could finish at the end of this map here for BDS. They could be, obviously, with still to do, if they win this, still to do more today. They've got, obviously, our third best of 3 later on that you and Demo will be taking us through. But otherwise, we'll have this start of a pressure. It's just, I'm kind of, you know, as you said, there's a tale of two halves, a tale of two stories. How much distance they need to go on. They've started with a similar game. I mean, they know about the player because they've pulled that together and got themselves onto that easy switch. But the similar sort of follow through, as I was going to sort of make the point on, this is how they started on their chalet approaches, right? Falcons were very good at isolating loose BDS players. They were really good at closing them down. They would put a lot of manpower towards it, but they would make sure that there was some pace in towards. But otherwise, pretty clean, pretty easy. Solitov pushes their way up towards blue. You can see EFAC's under pressure above the hatch itself, but if they don't know about this, surely they know about this. There's the reveal. Ooh, and he somehow gets Virtue! By his own virtues, Tim sprays through the blind and gets the head off him.
Virtue's got to be fuming on the back of that. I'd be absolutely screaming. He's gone into an FNAT and he's turned around and sprayed and got the down onto him. But look, that's what you're going to be up against here on Clubhouse. Falcons are so good on this map. They know every single angle. Sharko's got himself a kill. He finished the last one, but doesn't get the kill on the scorecard. It goes to Solitov for the down. You know, but 1-on-1, Sharko coming online a little bit already inside the first round, getting that entry, getting involved. It's just setting up the scale of the task for BDS. I said a 5-1 was going to be essential based on how those stats look for the second half. You know, they're trying to lean into, I'm not going to call it a gimmick, but, you know, they're trying to lean into that cap cannon, what's maybe worked on the previous map. And I just think, you know, BDS, you're going to have to bring something else to the table this time.
Slips their way on past to 4 versus 2. With 30 seconds left, one of them's been forced back towards Moto. They've accidentally revealed their spine, and it shows how powerful this position is. It just leaves Lasmo left alone. Falcons, they're just flooding themselves in at that point, and that was, I don't want to say easy, but I will say uncontested.
I think, you know, Falcons coming in there with a super strong start, looking like a different team to the one we've just seen on Chalet for the most part. You know, everybody's got involved there. They've had a flawless round. You know, what an announcement. What a way to bring yourself into this map, saying, yeah, you know, you've got your Chalet, that's fine. It's not going to bother Falcons in the slightest. Like I said, they are going to have looked at this as a best of 3. They look at Chalet and they think, yeah, it's not really our map. That's fine. Whatever happens, happens. We'll give it a do. But they are comfortable in the knowledge that they've got Clubhouse and Lair backing them up. You know, like I say, BDS really struggle on the attack of Clubhouse previously, so we've got to see a strong first half from them, and that is not it. That was not a good start in Church and Arsenal. They've been cut down everywhere that they've tried. You know, Falcons haven't leaned on any one thing in particular. Team Ace, as you can see. BDS, they move sites. Good idea. Up to gym and bedroom. Got to mix it up. Got to do something different. They do have the mirror available. They've got no wall denial. The Electro Bros are gone. Cade and Bandit not available. So they're going to be reliant on Mute, if anything, which they haven't chosen to bring along. Easy for Falcons to get in here and breach walls. They've got 3 hard breach on side. BDS are going to come under some real pressure quite quickly on this one.
Well, it's almost that sort of split of the other side, right? So, obviously, Demino... Demino? Don't know who that is, but Demo and I cast this game yesterday against Gen G, and, you know, you're talking about the halves that you need to open up with. You couldn't have asked for a better BDS one. It's already gone away from that. BDS, at the start of yesterday, had 2 rounds on Clubhouse over the previous 2 times they played it, and then got a flawless defensive half opening. Now that's been shaken, but at what point does he go, okay, maybe Freck was unfortunately right, but they did just get a bit lucky yesterday, or was that just sort of that Dutch cool that we expect? Pressure coming in, and Falcons, they're never going to mess up the basic steps on a map like Clubhouse. They know it so well. They're so good at it. These were the problems that we talked about when Gen G were trying to approach. They would often not do the basic back end of a job. They would sort of have single-tiered approaches. Here, it's quick. They've got Garage, they've got the pressure across CC. They're looking for the catch on the player that might slip across, but they're not immediately throwing themselves in. They're waiting for the support and the pressure to come through, and smoke canisters are popping here. This is a swing that I don't think we ever saw once on this approach from Gen G yesterday. But EFAC also holds and waits just on the other side of the barbed wire. So he doesn't give the game and the position away. Oh, and he somehow still loses it out. Virtue gets that kill. The pressure's coming inside CC, but they're forced back out on background. Users finds Freck, and Virtue gets caught as well. That was a quick tick to death. And now they've netted the 2 kills back in exchange for one of their hard breaches.
I love what Falcons are doing here. Leaky Factor temp on red stairs didn't work out. Virtue's reactions were brilliant there, gotta say. But they've really pressured those positions. They've used their utility to clear it out. They've now got that advantage and can start moving forward into construction. Time could be a factor. 45 seconds left to go. But we're going to see BDS really start to struggle to that pressure, I imagine, soon, because Users is on the windows as well. It's going to feel like there's not a single safe space. They can't use the elbow because we saw that opened up by Leaky Fact at the beginning with the ace. They opened up Jacuzzi wall. So a lot of holding on for BDS to do.
Well, the holding on is going to try and be a bit rocky. It's back and forth, still this pressure, but you look at the timer and you're going, okay, 7 players left. It's about to be a bit of a no-holds-barred brawl inside the site. They hop in and they're going to try and get themselves as tucked to the hard wall as possible as the cover comes together. Shaiko gets one, Solotov gets another, and suddenly it is just Robbie left. Hey, remember last map when we sort of said, well, they're missing Shaiko right now, but it's a best of 3 and he'll be back. 3-0 over the opening 2 rounds.
Yeah, that's it. He's coming online just as we expected. You know, we commented on maybe a slightly disappointing performance on Chalet, but, you know, I said at the time, and, you know, I kind of said it a little bit tongue-in-cheek, but there's 2 positions that, you know, we know as Shaiko up in construction, down in blue, we know where he's going to play on Clubhouse, and that's for a reason. You know, we don't have those spots on Chalet in the same way. It's not a map that he is as known for, and Falcons are as known for, so... You know, I look at it and I think BDS pulling that tactical timeout after just 2 rounds. You know, Laloon's obviously seen something there that she wants to interject with quickly because she knows that they are not great on the attack of Clubhouse. So we've got to right the ship and get some defenses on the board. It doesn't surprise me to see that tactical timeout so quickly.
I mean, there's also the idea, right, of what you said of what they need on this half. And yeah, they might have already lost too much of it 2 rounds in. The frustrating thing, I think, is although there are, let's say, in some regard to time, late pushes, 20 seconds left, 30 seconds left, it never feels like Falcons are up against the biggest obstacle, right? It was a 4 versus 3, 15 seconds left, and then it's 4 versus 1. And they're able to look at the movement of the diffuser carrier, unhindered all the way across Jim towards the back wall to get a plant down whilst the cover comes through, and it's just like they didn't feel ready, they didn't feel responsive. And I think that's what Laloon sort of stopped there and said, look, we need to play the team ahead of us. Let's get our heads a little bit more clued on, because that was when they were able to operate well on the previous map, right? Was when they were sort of being a bit mobile, sort of being a bit responsive and exploratory on Chalet. Different maps, fine, different sort of feeling to the vibes of when you're up against Falcons on a Chalet and when you're up against them here. But otherwise, an early rip on that timeout, and now it's just pressure on. You've got, if it's not broken, no need to try and change things up. A slight swap with the Havana, obviously. But otherwise, I think they're going to be confident just rooting them out, finding the loose players, and then closing down with the same pressure.
Yeah, it gives them the opportunity to move Leakafak over onto the Deimos. There's plenty of opportunity from below on this site. Again, quick breaching is coming in. Going to get that Jacuzzi wall open. They can now move across and start getting CCTV and applying the pressure over that side. I'm keeping a close eye on Leakafak and exactly where he plays. He was up on the roof, but he has now moved down to more of a position where I would expect him. Get in underneath and challenge those players inside of Cash with that Vendetta from beneath. Get the tracks out, force them away, and maybe just speed up, because as I said, it was 45 seconds left before they were getting into construction last time, and I think maybe Falcons felt, you know, this is quite close time-wise. Let's try and get things moving a little bit quicker, but the only thing moving quicker is Freck managing to get the opener. Shaiko taken down this time, but he's not long for this world. We see this army cut down. Solotov gets the trade. No, it's Robbie actually that gets taken down, not Freck, so that's going to leave us 4 versus 4.
They did a bit of a sort of do or die position there, and they die on the end of it, but they were able to get rid of the Capital in the exchange. As I said, the problems that we saw from Gen G's approach yesterday, you're getting solutions from the side of Falcons. They made sure they had the utility to put the pressure on, and we saw that exact as Army setup cause much longer problems. Yes, it's gotten a kill out of it. Yes, it's an exchange, but it's one that you were expecting to sort of play out. Here's more of a pressure, more of a fear. There's somebody that's about to show up underneath, and P4 just gets a freebie. Onto EFAC, not entirely sure what they expected. A little bit too locked in. Solotov, though, swings the pressure. Background. Virtue gets to use this, and they're refusing to give up the ground here. Virtue is the cross-hold, and maybe just too much for consideration. That pre-fire bullet actually gave the game away, that they'd gone for the hot rotate, and, well, BDS get around.
Yeah, I think we can, see that tactical timeout in action there. They've held those positions kind of much harder. They've brought along, they've utilised that as Army better. They've had the Jaeger this time instead of the Warden. They've had the Wamai. They've recognised what was causing the problems, and they've made changes and adaptations by going straight back to that site. So I really like that. I like what Lilloon's obviously interjected with there and how it's been translated into a round win. So good stuff for BDS. Falcons, I've got to ask those questions again. We're kind of asleep at the wheel. You've got Leakafak underneath. He's looking skyward. He's been shooting out the ceiling above him. He's been using the Vendetta. And then he just runs clean underneath a vertical hole without a care in the world. We've had a Selma charge has been taken off the wall with an impact nade. We've had an impact trick come in. And you're kind of looking at it thinking, well, players got to be somewhere, right? And they've just, I think, got a little bit ahead of themselves there, Falcons.
Sorry, I don't know why that got me, but
Jammer ready. Reload.
good joke, production. Using that to advertise the skins.
Activate camera.
5 seconds
I was
remaining.
given a skin to give away. I'm quite happy about that. Mainly like
I mean, we love a
To
giveaway.
locate a bomb
I love a
and defuse
giveaway.
it.
But I like asking stupid, the usual giveaways where it's like, follow me, and they follow the team. But, it was an Elevate anime skin. And then I was like, which operator watches an anime? What anime do you think they watch? And then that's, if you give me a response when you're in the pool. People, I think someone said Sledge watches Attack on Titan. Or like, Dockerby probably watches a lot of anime. You watch a lot of anime?
I have never watched any anime.
Wow, not even
I
any
know.
like Studio Ghibli stuff.
No, it's just not something that's ever like crossed my radar. Maybe I'm too old. I don't know.
Well, animation has existed longer than you have, I think.
I mean, I've watched animation.
Okay.
Just not specifically anime.
Right. Well, we'll find something for you.
I'm
maybe.
familiar with the medium of cartoon, for example.
You saw Mickey Mouse on the steamboat. You saw Steamboat
Well,
Willie. Yeah.
I was there.
You're Goofy. Oh, that's Goofy. Freck. And a second fish in the barrel of Robbie is almost executed. I watched just over the stock hatch, but they slip away, and it was a good encircling and good bit of pressure. I mean, I guess they just thought, well, they can't get all of us. They almost did, though.
Pressure is going to continue to mount from above. I'm just keeping a close eye on Usus and exactly where he's moving around at the minute. He's still positioned inside of far. Minute 20, plenty of time left on the clock. He's not going to be able to do too much work from above with that pistol. So he's going to be utilised more, I think, in a little bit of an intel position, using up above those verticals, seeing what he can see. Who can he ping out? What information can he gain for his team? How about that, though? Virtue managing to find a nice nitro kill onto Solotov. Takes down the Ash. Not the biggest loss for Falcons, but what it does for BDS is just keep them in touch in terms of man count, but they've got caught out. Leakafak's at the bottom of main stairs. They're unaware, and he cuts down Virtue in a late trade. That's the Valkyrie gone. 4 versus 3, and they're doing pretty well for time here on this attack of Falcons.
Oh, he's gone hunting, but he's revealed. I guess the drone just caught the tail end of that approach. You could see what P4 was trying, but he was a bit of a step behind. Look at the split control as well. It's everything Demo was sort of talking about yesterday. They've got themselves in blue. They've got themselves in moto, and they're just going to try and drive on the back of it. It allows them to force them into positions like this. And now, Robbie, all that's left, they're going for the plant. You won't see it because it ends via blood. Well, there's your response, Freck.
Yep, League of Facts certainly getting passionate about that round. We love to see the players feeling those emotions, getting involved. As I said, there's a lot on the line for this one. Of course, if they could get this map, which is looking less and less likely as we continue, BDS would confirm themselves for the Munich Major. If not, we will go on to map 3 and it will be the winner of Layer that will decide that position for now. It's not the end of the road for the losing team either. Important that we highlight that. Whoever loses will go down to the lower bracket and will need, I think it's 1 win. 1 win will take them into then a 4th place position. So, whether it comes now or whether maybe it comes on another day to get that 4th place position, BDS will have 2 chances, but Falcons fighting back very, very well on Clubhouse so far. It's going to be CCTV and Cash for round 5.
5 seconds left.
BDS just struggling to find much of a footing anywhere at the minute.
Objective is to defuse a bomb.
I think that's the main part of this, right? This is sort of how we expected this to go, and that's not great for BDS, but it's also how we expected it to go. So BDS are probably not going to beat themselves too much about how this game goes, and I'm not going to say it's a half time. I'm not going to say it's entirely sort of lost to it, but it is just for the comments we made about how occasionally games will play in and out of statistics. This is a statistic. This is one that's perfectly on that graph going, oh yeah, the numbers, they're right this time. They've got a chance to try and fight their way out. You're looking at obviously the players who could have those moments last time of, Freck having an absolute massive game, maybe the best map he'd played across the split off the top of my head, but I have to check that. Which did open up with a lot of his work on the attacking half as Virtue opens up 1, gets dropped, and EFAC almost gets caught trying to get the pick back up onto Virtue. I think they don't think it's really worth it. They're going, Virtue's bait, yeah, he's down, but if we make a move on him, let's just let him bleed out. They're not going to get him, and then they can try and move in. Bought themselves a little bit of time as more vertical angles are being opened. Shaco's trying to find that hammer hit from underneath.
Launching drone!
But they're pulling themselves back and forth. It's more reverse fishing. Falcons need to watch for a slight different approach. Freck and P4 both take big chunks of damage in scratchy engagements. Users and Robbie are next to follow, and seemingly everybody is playing a mobile dance, but Falcons finally put an end to it. Apart from a drop rotate round, Freck gets Shaiko, gets that vertical pressure slightly cleared away. Just Breede's going for the plant. Are they going to try and get this from underneath? They're shotgunning the wrong side. The plant is being fully secured, and well, the C4 does get 2. Okay, post-plant, single player outside the window, Tim.
Oh, I was going to say, it could be tough to hold on, Users. It's a beauty to kick things off, but then Robbie responds, gets straight on that diffuser, and we've got to ask questions of Falcons again. Stood so close on top of each other next to that diffuser when it goes down, just inviting that double nitro kill that BDS managed to hit, and they are punished for it. BDS managed to get themselves another round. It's 2-3. But, and it's a big but, we have to remember there is an asterisk against this half. It is always going to be, we would expect, historically, the better half for BDS. They really needed to come out of this half with an advantage. They are going into the second attacking half with an 18% attacking win rate on Clubhouse. It is going to be really tough for them to fight back still, but every round helps, and that was a great retake.
It was, and I mean, you got to give credit, obviously, the drop down underneath, the pressure on towards Shaiko. It was almost a bit locked in response. I think that's the thing about when your information game, when your control game has been so good, as it has from Falcons, when something does slip past, it can be very shocking. Shaiko was fully confident that nobody would try and make that motion, whether they had somebody actively watching it or it just drifted away. Think about the route that was taken there. Freck, you assume, hopped his way over the top of the rafters, went down, went across underneath and got the kill. It's just that sort of position where you think, with where they wanted to plant, they would have kept somebody keeping an eye on it, right? Maybe that was Shaiko. Maybe he drifted a bit far because he wanted the kills underneath. It's hard to say. But opportunity is what gives you possibility, and possibility is what BDS have turned into a round win there. Now, when we find ourselves once again back onto gym and bedroom, it's been back and forth, but since the timeout, it was the site that was won out by BDS. They're one of their two defenses.
Stay clear.
We'll see if they can try and make it happen a bit. A quick break against an easy remove mute jammer.
Sequential breaching activated.
And early work done.
Deploying Claymore.
Yeah, glad to see that. It's such a simple thing, but glad to see that exothermic used in that way by Breeder. Quite often we see where the mute jammers are placed, people will go for that upside down rappel to avoid it, and it just leaves you with that vault animation to get in through the breach. It may well be that they're not actually going to use that breach on Jacuzzi wall, but by using that exothermic the right way up, you can still avoid the mute jammer, and it gives you that nice big clean breach that you want. So well played from Breeder. And again, it's just all part of that phantom pressure that Falcons will build up. Not necessarily using that area, but just preventing somebody from playing on the corner. Now then, BDS on the defense this time have chosen to bring along the tubber out. It is going to do some early work here. We're down to 1:20 left. The first breach has gone off from the Selma, but still able to continue freezing it out. Liquefied tries to go up those main stairs. Will definitely have been heard from the barbed wire. Surely, yes. We've seen it a couple of times where Liquefied tries to get aggressive, tries to push the front line and loses out, but ultimately his team are able to back him up. It's kill after kill, it's 4v1, and Solotov finds another. Robbie tries to fight back, but surely it's going to be too big a task to ask of the man this time. He's in a 1v3, the diffuser's going down. Can he do it? Absolutely not. Solotov closes it out, shuts it down, and closes another round for Falcons. 4-2, and they move on to the defense.
I mean, that was so just the swing round at the end there. They knew fully well where he was. And as I said, that information game, that sort of lockdown confidence game of, oh yeah, we know where they are, we know what they're doing. And that operation, when it comes together, is as smooth as the Falcons' approaches have been on that site. We've seen it a couple of times. I said it after the second, was although it's final 20, 30 seconds, look how many of them are left standing, and look how suddenly it becomes that position, right? There's that confidence on that approach, and that's built by information. It's built by knowing you can cross these divides, that you can put that pressure in that way, backed by great gun skill, backed by great comms, fine. 4-2. And we're on the opposite end.
Not the first half that BDS will have been looking for him. Not the first half at all that they wanted, because things are about to ramp up in terms of difficulty. They are attacking Church and Arsenal. Falcons, I will go so far as to say it's not about expectation here. They need to come out 5-2. They need, this is their map. This is their choice. This is their half. This is the defensive side. You know, as Leo said, BDS had kind of knew they were likely to come to Clubhouse, and had like they did with Gen G yesterday, massaged it, tried to work it so they could at least come into this map on the stronger half of things. They've only managed to grab 2 rounds. So Falcons, they need to put them to the sword now. We need some killer instinct out of them. You know, blood is in the water. We need them in there, getting this done. I want to see 7-2, 7-3 from Falcons here, realistically, if I'm a Falcons supporter.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you need it's almost the weird thing that we talked about where you sort of say, okay, if you're the confident team, if you're the top team, you have to be able to put results to bed. It's not always the case. And it's often region by region on a basis, right? And you don't want to sort of point fingers, but a first versus a fourth battle in one region is very different to a first versus a fourth battle in a different region. It's just par for the course. The swing round in towards all of this, though, is a team being tested if they are going all the way on maps that they should be locking in these sort of statistical anomalies. It's not that BDS aren't playing well today. It's not that they're a team that doesn't deserve the position that they're in. But statistically, Clubhouse is one of their weakest maps. And it's a great map for you. So this should be one of those. Top team, put it to bed. And as you said, you as a Falcons fan, but probably also as the Falcons themselves, want just a 7-2. Just put this one over, keep it going, and there's Shaiko to do exactly that. Solotov free to move. Shaiko gets himself another, and whatever BDS tried there on a rush, Shaiko, I think, got a 4K.
I think...
So many clips.
I
Reel the
think-
clips.
Correct me if I'm wrong here, and I'm not speaking, maybe... I think they might be aware that Freck, told him to shush on the first match. Could be wrong, but we've had both Leakafak and Shaiko. Maybe they've seen it from him previously, but we've both Leakafak and Shaiko giving the shush to the cameras. But look, good stuff from them so far. That's basically what I'm talking about there. Where I said they need to be coming out with a 7-2, 7-3 half. They need to be winning that first round. They've just done that, not just a little bit. They've done that with absolute style. BDS had no clue. When they come down the stairs behind the Deimos there, they had absolutely no clue. And BDS, they're going to get hit hard if it carries on like that. Falcons, 5-2 up. It's about that confidence as well. You're looking towards Leia, realistically, is what you're doing. And if BDS can get... even come out of this with a loss and it's 7-5. You've got them going forward thinking, you know what, that's our worst map, but we nearly had him. We nearly had him then. Where you can't allow that as Falcons. You just cannot allow it.
Do you know what? The thing as well is about it. So when we were in the timeouts around 5-6 last time, and he ended the map, statistically, as I said at the time, Shaiko was the lowest rated player of the first map. And, and we said it at the time, you're like, yeah, you've got this opportunity, he's not there. Whether he was inspired by the clips he saw from player cams or not, he is now, I think, overall across this whole series, rated better than 4 of the players on BDS, including both these 2 maps. He's just found that form once again, and that's that terrifying possibility. And what is he across this? He's 10-3 now. Yeah, and he evens him up.
This is what we're talking about.
Yeah, overall he's 15-15 now from the 2 maps. And in this map, from that performance, from where he was to where he is, and it's sort of like, this is how much of an effect it can have on a team.
Yeah, and it's going to continue. He's made no mistake about it. He sent a message now to BDS. This is going to continue on to Leia, and he's going to come away with a 35 to 40 kill series, or maybe more. And all of a sudden, you sat there. Falcons have qualified to the Munich Major, and you're thinking, what's happened? And he's that sort of player. So BDS are gonna have to dig deep. I don't mean to talk about like they're already beaten, or it is not over. And you keep fighting. And all of Laloon's teams have always had that mentality, that attitude, and we will continue to see it. And Virtue manages to pick up Reader to level things up at 4 versus 4. They have to show it in the server. They have to show that mentality and that attitude. And this is what we need more of. Lasmo, Robbie managed to get in and one apiece. Leakafak gets cut down as well. 3 versus 1 now. And this could be a round. And without a big moment from Solotov, they can't allow this BDSM. They cannot allow it.
It's a 2 versus 1, 40 seconds. He doesn't have a C4, whether they know that or not might change things, but Virtue does the right maneuver. I think they weren't sure if he'd been able to move up the stairs itself. BDS, they get around. They're still trying to just sort of hit it quick, hit it heavy. And it comes out in towards a trade game that works into their favor. Getting some first moments there. The last 2 entry kills have gone in towards the side of Falcons. And yet BDS losing that opening engagement, still putting in the fight, putting in the sort of contest. The pace at which they're getting in is, as I said, very quick. 2 bodies left, but at that time, it's also the first kills I think Lasmo's gotten. It's the second kill P4's gotten. Now's the time for them to start trying to find their feet and find their energy a bit. Maybe. I don't want to entirely point fingers here. I really don't. But it's funny, because it's Leo. I'm not sure if he's got his in-ears in and if they listen, but if they do. Have you cursed Freck again, as you cursed Wolves yesterday?
10 seconds to insertion.
Is this you, Leo? Did you see him yesterday?
5 seconds remaining.
Calls in half-time. Dooms a team.
Attacker's objective is to locate a bomb and defuse
Makes a
it.
graphic called Perfection.
Perfection.
Perfection. Freck has gone 4 and 8.
Address?
It's not a horrible scoreline, but compared to where he was, it's wind out of his sails. And there I am doing the opposite, Leo. See, that's
wind
how you
picks
pick a
up
player up.
Following up.
The wind picks up and Freck will start to move forward with a little bit of pace there, getting himself an opener. And that is, it's important for more than one reason. Last 2 rounds, so both of the defensive rounds for Falcons so far, they've picked up the opening kill, Shako and Solitov, round 7 and 8 respectively. So BDS coming in with an advantage this time. Freck able to find that. It's also worth noting, every single entry kill, all 4 of them that Falcons have had this game have been onto Freck. So him coming out there, you know, he's had 2 himself, so he's 2 and 4. That brings him back to 3 and 4. It gets him in the game. It's leveling up his stats. He's getting close to at least having, you know, an even difference between those things. 5 versus 4. Falcons, they've dug back in a little bit. We're starting to see they were aggressive in round 7. That first defense, they ran through BDS. They were cutting them down without them seeing what was going on. Shako got a 4K. It was back to that movement that, you know, Leo did such a good breakdown on the pre-show. Shako's movement and the way he's aggressive towards every angle that's being challenged, and he found those kills. That was textbook Shako in round 7, but they've not allowed it in the last round and a half, and that is a real positive for BDS.
Yeah, as I said, maybe it's the other side of it where, you know, I've cursed Shako, unfortunately. It's the battle between the English and the French. It never ends. Yesterday, the Frenchmen cursed the English, and I've apparently done the same to the French. Rafters will be the next port of call here. You can see some of the pressure playing underneath. The impact DMPs just remove it to allow the fire to push its way through, and they've got to try and get this out clean. He's inside fire. Efac's being cooked. There's some damage done, and there he goes. A real nice takedown there on that player. Robbie gets one more as well. You just think that they didn't overextend. Oh, there's one. Doesn't get the second, but could have leveled things up there. Or got themselves closer towards it. Now it's Brede alone. They'll be listening to the crawl of users, hoping that they get to pick up sound. It's very noisy, and the drone is watching it as well as users pings out, sort of says, leave me, mate. You'll be better off on your own in the 1 versus 4. That C4 doesn't quite catch anyone. They pushed into top red. There's at least one, but instantly met. BDS. Good response.
BDS have awoken in the last couple of rounds. You'll love to see it. Again, that execution onto Cash and CCTV was perfect. They get the main breach open. They're using the repels. They clear out rafters so effectively. There's nothing that Leakefat can do in that situation. Great, great stuff from BDS. If you remember, I said maybe they don't take Clubhouse. Who knows? On the last 2 rounds, maybe they do. But, you know, we assume it still goes Falcons' way. But if BDS can get them to overtime, even, it gives them that big push going through into there. It's not like they've just been battered and pushed around on Clubhouse, as would probably have been the expectation. So it's great, great stuff from BDS. I said a couple of rounds ago, I wanted to see them dig deep, get a couple of rounds, you know, show that fighting spirit, get themselves back into the server, and they've done it beautifully in round 8 and 9. Great stuff from them. It does see us going back down to Church and Arsenal, which was won comfortably by Falcons. So, you know, the expectation here would be that BDS maybe don't get this one done and we go on to match point for Falcons. But who knows, given the way those last couple of rounds have gone. BDS, they've chosen to take away the Azami. Falcons have taken away the Capitao. We saw how Leakefat struggled with it in that last round. That's no surprise. But there's still a lot of verticality possible for BDS here. They're not bringing any of it with them, which is an interesting one. One hatch is going to be dealt with by the Denari trip connectors.
At this point, we talked about how much Falcons need to put this one over. At which point do we go, okay, Falcons, let's make sure we have a conversation here. Obviously, the loser of this game, their runners still has potential, right? They would fall towards the lower bracket. They wouldn't be entirely wrapped out, but the more BDS building this confidence, remember how the last map was. Remember how, you know, efficient BDS were on their attacks compared to their sort of defenses. And you're almost getting that story once again. They're getting those blocks of momentum. They're getting those blocks of rounds. Falcons just need to sort of tie the pressure on. A 5-2 to a 5-4. I mean, it's a divide that we've seen teams lose from greater heights on. Trying to get the wrap up on whoever is drifting themselves around. They've steady bits of control. You can see that Falcons, they're not going to try and contest any of the rest of the map here. They've peeled themselves entirely back down towards the site. I think they've realized, okay, when BDS see an opportunity, they go quick, they go fast, and they go direct forward. Let's not give them that. And remember that when they won this round before, I think the round at this point was already decided. Everyone sort of threw themselves in around the 1 minute 50 mark, and by the 1 minute 40 mark, BDS was dead. Here instead, Tim, just more time to cook and more time to prep from their side.
Yeah, BDS just playing a more default game, and this one, you know, rather than trying to push in and get aggressive onto site, we've got the verticals being open, they've got the hatches, they're trying to force Falcons away from those default positions that they will want to hang on to. The problem is a couple of those are in church, they're in blue, they're in dirt, and it's difficult to force players away from there. You can't really do it with the verticals. They're going to have to push down. We want to see that split approach that we've already spoken about. These attackers of BDS, they need to get a presence on kitchen hatch, inside of blue, at bottom main. Force Falcons to look in multiple directions. Don't allow them to focus on one gunfight. How about that for an almost win of a gunfight? Solotov takes a lot of damage, but nearly takes down P4 on the reverse vertical up the hatch. BDS need to be careful. They don't want to be losing anybody before they push onto site.
That's it, right? You know, as soon as you lose that man advantage, as soon as you lose that sort of engagement, you have to drop down into what is a very wide site with 20 seconds. It's kind of as good as over, but here, you've got to drop down into the site with 20 seconds. All your maneuvers are going to be very well signposted and picked up on. Users gets one, the C4 almost gets a follow through as Shaiko locks in control of blue, and Lasmo getting one and Bride going back and forth. There is no control on towards the territory and just too much left to do. Still with the shushes, but the rest of Falcons seem a little bit calmer right now.
I was going to say, at least some of the emotions are certainly up on the side of Falcons, but you've got to be careful with that sometimes as well. You know, we've famously heard from, you know, teams in Canadian particularly, you know, has revved his teams up a lot over the years, but you know, speaking to coaches, sometimes they said, you know, you've got to think about that energy sometimes, and you've got to kind of, you don't want it too low, and that's something I think Falcons have struggled with in the past. There's been, you know, that low energy, and they go quiet. We've seen it in the grand finals over the last year or so, you know, but also it's about not being too much up there as well. You've kind of got to keep a happy middle ground, and I think Falcons are finding that at the minute. I think all is well. We're going to have them taking the tactical timeout though, and it's an interesting choice to get themselves onto that map point, but they have to go and win on a site they haven't won on yet, so I understand it, but of course you're giving BDS that same opportunity to have a chat themselves as well. You know, Laloon can again interject. We saw a really good response after their tactical timeout that they used in the first half, so you know, maybe BDS can come back with something against here and get themselves into that round 11.
Well, the timeout did show that was a Falcons timeout. Well.
Yeah, BDS already called that.
Yeah, yeah, they called it. God, it was so long ago.
Yeah, it's after round 2. It's after second round. Yeah.
What a world! What a world we're living in. Time. Where does it go? But yeah. Sort of put there, it's now just got to be put over the edge. You're looking at Lair as well as your final in this sort of showdown. In terms of it being a decider map, I know it's sort of already lured over towards Falcons with an impressive 5-1 sort of recent history, including what, 7 days ago, just 7-2 against BDS. It's nowhere that BDS massively want to return to, right? In a weird way, this is an untested on Clubhouse with no recent performance against Falcons on it, is a chance to do it. They've collectively done better than their games against Secret and Genji from a while ago, not including the good game against Genji yesterday. But 2 rounds keep them adrift of OT. 2 rounds keep them adrift of being able to lock this one in and push it over the edge. Falcons with a stretch and CC pressured him.
I feel like it's an essential start for BDS to have the entry kill here. picked up on it yourself. So Obar, Obar, it's now 3. There's only 3 rounds. It has increased a little bit since we discussed it last, but only 3 rounds have gone against that entry kill. So it is, again, just such a big opportunity for the teams that can come in there and get it. 70% of the time on this map, they have been closing out the rounds. So let's see which way that one goes. As it stands, we've got a completely top-floor presence from Falcons, largely as we would expect. That's great work from the Brava there, just going in and taking away one of those 2 bulletproof cameras that Falcons will have been relying on. We hear Leakafak ripping the nitro, but then switching back to that secondary. It's very active at the minute between these 2 areas, Top Red and Cash. Robbie has got himself in though, but look at the perfect timing of that stun. That's great placement.
Yep, hit them with the stun, hit them with the Guma, and force them back. It means they can't build a momentum, and we've already talked about how good and important that is for, I guess, any attackers, but BDS throughout this series as well. The C4 didn't quite catch anybody, but as the pressure comes on the split, this is the divide they've got to cross, and Freck gets one, Shaiko gets P4 back, it's traded back and forth, but Freck gets himself a second from that open breach and isn't going to give them the opportunity to chase him down. Knows how important having the extra gun in the firefight is, as the rest of the team steady some control, but 40 seconds. Now they've got eyes on towards construction. They're going to look towards Logi. They've got Freck obviously putting the pressure on the main window on the far side. Maybe going to hit main stairs and just get some of that split in as the Goyos start to pop here. Falcons holding on in the 4 versus 3, but they have the opportunity and ability to play on their defenses. There is still a lot of it standing, so in the final 20 seconds, having the work be done structurally means that it's only really the final 5 seconds in the push itself. Sprayed round. Robbie taking a bit more damage as well. Shaiko's off, and well, there's 2. Falcons, they lock themselves in a 2 versus 2 to a 2 versus 1, and nobody. Falcons, the double shush from Licky back to send us from our second map with 1 more on the cards for this showdown.
For, you know, the behind-the-scenes staff at BDS to have done to say, look, if this is going to go to Lair, we need to be able to forget about that 7-2. We need to be able to move on from that. They can't have that playing in as part of the mental game here. It's been a close 2 maps so far. BDS have been super competitive, but it's going to get even harder now.
I think that's it, right? There's no more shush. Well, we'll probably get more shushing, actually. The shushing cannot be seen by the opposing team. Not until it comes in. At this point, if you're shushing, it's just yourself. Solotov has accidentally become invisible. So I think we'll have a pause. Oh, he's back. But it's all, this is the drive, right? This is the chance. And again, it doesn't take anybody away from their chance at making it. Whoever falls, I'm assuming it was a swap from yesterday. So say, for example, BDS lose, they won't be up against Genji. They'll be up against Wolves on the other side of it, because a bracket flip makes sense. Falcons, well, they would have the same opponent, and then they would have the chance to fight their way into the lower bracket semi. That is also, as well, whoever pulls this one out of the bag, whoever gets themselves in towards the upper bracket final later on, then secures themselves top 3. Potentially as well, which, you know, this is a prize pool jump. There's not quite a jump between SI points. First gets 300, second gets 150, and then it's 50 for the next 3 spots as well. But that's also that other important factor, is as well as getting yourself in towards sort of the major in Munich, you can cement yourself with getting a nice chunk of SI points, which I think everybody would like nowadays.
Yeah! I mean, look, the SI points are super important. We all, you know, everybody wants to get there. There's a number of opportunities. We've got the major, we've got, you know, the regional finals coming up as well. The top 6, of course, will play off in that, and there'll be a spot available. So, you know, plenty of opportunities. But yeah, just getting it done and dusted, getting as many points as you can, it's really, really big. So, you know, wins at this point that are going to push you towards that grand final and give you that opportunity, you know, of the difference between 300 or 150. is a big deal. So, you know, as well as that Munich major. But right now, these players have just got to be focusing on the match that's in front of them. Falcons start on the defence. That's going to suit them down to the ground. When they played last time around a week ago, Falcons won 3 defences in a row to win the match overall. We only saw them defend 3 times, but they won top floor, they won basement, and they won bunks. They won every single site. So BDS immediately on the back foot, I think, here, realistically. They've got their work cut out for them.
Oh, the fight almost immediately on the front as Opsers, in fact, just drift slightly further away, and they can try and put pressure onto this position. You can hear the wall is, actually not being breached. They wanted to try and get a swing on for a split second, but as what looks like electrification comes into pass, well, neither will the immediacy of the breach itself. A huge bit of work to be done, but why not send a shield in to do it? The grenade bounces their way around. At this point, they should leave control because they know it's going to follow through. There's a Deimos underneath as well, and cut between the core of 2 players. And Shaiko pops it. Users gets Freck. And they're going to still keep trying to move behind it. Looking for the fight, but thread the needle. Licky Fat gets the head of Lasmo. And it's all just fallen a bit apart here. Virtue rotated round to get control of the top, but as P4 is all that's left on the split of the main stairs, there was just no one over the shoulder of the cover. Robbie going down underneath as well. It's just been, I'm not going to say one-dimensional, but they tried to hit it with 2 at the same time, and as soon as they got rid of that player underneath, they had nothing else elsewhere. There wasn't any other threat apart from this position. And now they've just got to try and force themselves in here. I think we're probably off to a flawless opener. Well, that at least stops it, but not for long.
Not for long at all. I mean, really, I look at a round like that, and I'm going to bring out the tried and tested botheredometer. And, you know, we have a look at that, and how bothered were the players inside of sight during that round? And the answer is not very. Yeah, we had a couple of kills coming from inside of sight, but they were never moved. They were never dislodged. They were never disrupted. And that's a big problem for BDS. It's a big problem because on that site, it's very, very possible. So if you want to disrupt people on that site, if you want to make it difficult for people to play in their positions, you take a Deimos, you take a Book, you know, you take these operators that are going to allow you to go in underneath, both of whom are available, by the way. You get in underneath and you start working some verticals. You know, you get into weapon maintenance, you push through from there. You know, that's your ops room. So you just move across, and as you go, you open up the ceiling above you, and you're going to remove those power positions, mask wall, desk, you know, on the double door between sites. You're going to be able to stop players playing in those positions, and none of that was done. It was pretty much get in the building, try and push these angles, try and work through this single door, see if we can get a breach. None of it really happened. Yeah, big problem for BDS. They've got the same opportunity here. I'm looking at their lineup. I'm a little bit concerned. We've got the Deimos, but we've got no RAM. We've got no Book. We've got no soft breach charges. We've got no other vertical options, and it's a little bit of a concern. I feel like they are limiting themselves.
Now, obviously, we had these 2 teams meet on this map not that long ago, and Falcons were able to win it out 7-2. They started on their attack as well, getting a 4-2 opening half, and then just a solid lockout on defense. So if we're counting score, this is in a weird way 4 defenses in a row for Falcons. How far can they push that divide before BDS are finally able to take one and make them bleed a little? Pressure on towards the mirror position here. Brede, they can pull back towards a hatch that's open, and they can drop themselves down before they're caught from the back. You can see that the sort of width of the approach here from BDS isn't really being met by Falcons. They realize, oh, they're trying to catch us, let's pull out. Apart from a Valkyrie, they really went on an adventure outside the warehouse and up the stairs, and well, it does give away the other. This is usually quite a big battle that happens on towards the filtration side up blue stairs, but currently, no, they sort of said, no, you can take it. We're playing with this soft game. You've got this to work out. And as you said, we'll just take a C4 to sort of ruin this dream of theirs.
Clearing the way.
You can see them kind of struggling with the Vendetta there, trying to get some vertical angles, trying to use them. It's great when you're hunting somebody, when you've got that track on and you want to shoot through the floor. Yeah, fantastic. It's not good for giving you those vertical options, for being able to give you that presence above to create a concern for defenders playing inside a site. As it is, Robbie's doing some good work here. He's managed to use that hatch angle particularly well to catch a few feet there. We've got users, we've got Leak Effect taking some chip damage, but a minute left on the clock, and there's still work for BDS to do here. They've lost that entry battle. P4 does manage to pick up Solotov though, so it's 1-for-1. It's 4 versus 4. BDS, where is that blitz? Where is Virtue going to be going? That's going to be the tip of the spear. That's going to be the push into site.
Well, they now have eyes on a default plant, and they just try and keep pushing on towards it and cover the distance. Kills himself, but takes the man down with him. Maybe not what he wanted to happen, but what else could you do apart from scream? Lasmo gets the kick confirmed, and EFAC in lockers. They know where he is, and they can peel themselves away. They don't need to extend for the fight. They can watch this from above as they are. You can see the rotate coming around. They've kept a player close as well to be a bit of a spot fight for it, and now that player can peel back. And sure, with that hatch, that is, I'm not going to say unwinnable, but we don't even get to see the fight around it. Locked out by BDS, and they've been able to stem the flow. Okay, we're back to the shushing. Did not last long.
Well, it's a better performance already on the attack from BDS than we saw last time these two met on layer. As I said, they didn't get a single attack successfully. You know, they were beaten out in 3 rounds across every single side. So that was better. I voiced the concern at the beginning, a little bit concerned about their lack of verticality. I think on other rounds that could hurt them, so it's something they need to be aware of. But Robbie did great work, even with the limited utility in vertical terms of the Vendetta. He used the Deimos well, did a good job. I think Breeder's a little bit unlucky there, but a little bit of damage on him as well. It just shows the, you know, the desperation to take out a blitz like that. Breck, I think maybe suggesting that they're in his pocket there.
Attackers have located
You know
the bomb.
what? There's something to be said about the art of mime making a comeback in esports.
Device position.
10 seconds
I want it
remaining.
to get more and more elaborate. I want players to bring in props.
5 seconds to go.
I want to see, like, you know, like in old cartoons, like Roadrunner holding up a sign. I
Attackers are
want
heading out
that.
to defuse a bomb.
I just want
Like just a small pile of bird seed. It's like, yeah.
I want to get real elaborate. Like, we can push this art form.
We need an anvil at some point, surely.
The Acme branded anvil, get it on.
Surely that's going to be a requirement. Right, we go to our third choice site, and we're going to have immediate attention from P4 towards that external wall, exactly as we would expect. I'm just looking towards the top floor. We've got Shaiko, Breeder, Solotov, and Jesus up there. So it's a 4-man top floor defense. Leak is going to be playing for the trick. He's not going to get it. Needs to move away. That's really well played by BDS. They've read into that. They've seen Falcons do that previously. We bring along the Maverick. We prevent him being able to play in that position. Really nice stuff. And that is external wall open in 45 seconds. Nice, quick progress.
Ooh, in and slips past, waits for the fog to dissipate, but the players have otherwise pulled themselves away. This is an important engagement. If you look at the lineup of the attackers, they have nothing to disguise their motion if they wanted to go into the site, which is the standard approach we've seen. You know, no Capitão, no sense, none of that lockdown to just give themselves anything to operate under. So with pocket full of flashes, what can you do? Well, you've got to go above. You've got to take these engagements. You cannot just try and slip your way through here, but you also have only given yourself the option to go for these swing fights. Fine, you can put some of the control behind you and get the hard open, but otherwise it's just crossing divides with no cover, and that isn't easy on this top floor anyway, alone. How far can you move on the back of a flash? How confident do you feel in a position like this that you're not going to get swung from the desk, from the top of the main stairs, from the split on the other side of the site? The air jab goes a bit deep. They're able to get rid of the camera, and a smoke canister of the opponents will at least slow some of the motion, but as they just keep trying to drive behind it, pressure on towards the cross window as well. They've got some eyes on display. They've got some eyes on the rest of it. But with only a minute left and only some of this control over the top, they have to start pushing for these kills. They get one on the far side. Some presence on towards green. Lasmo gets another from that position on towards Solotov. And there's Lasmo getting 2. And what a wraparound this has been. Shaiko does find 1, but he's now all that is left alone above here. The flashes start to ring out. Their approach to be a bit more of a clock out. In fact, no, sorry, Users is still up here as well. But P4's going to go for the plant. They think they've done enough. And as the pressure comes either side, well, they probably have post-plant situation here. At this point, as I sort of said, it's been a very clean take on the top.
I love that from BDS. So looking at, I'm looking at that lineup coming in and I'm thinking they have to take top floor here. They don't have a choice. Sometimes you do if you bring the right operators, if you bring the sense, if you bring the ying, if you bring some smokes.
About this.
Yeah, you can get away with not taking... It's not always easy, but you can get away with not taking the top floor. You just obscure those lines of sight, you get into kind of an off-brand plant position, and you put it down and you leave the defenders up on the top floor, scrambling around, trying to find where you're putting the diffuser down, open up new verts, all that sort of good stuff. It was just never going to be possible with that lineup. We look at the lineup, Thermite, Dockerby, Grim, Nomad, Maverick. There was nothing there to be able to provide that cover. I think you said like 8 flashes on side. Just not going to happen. But I love that they recognised that their whole game plan was get in and make it difficult for them to hold on to top floor. And they didn't even have a ton of utility to do that. It was all around the flashes. They didn't, apart from the Grim. And what they had, they used well, and they put Falcons in bad positions. They got kills, and they recognised that the win condition was top floor control to enable them to plan. And they played for it completely. 2-1 up on the attack is a good start for BDS.
I think that was a really, really well put together approach. So I've had a lot of rants with Demo about this.
By attackers. 10 seconds remaining.
I'm going through anger management with it. I'm not.
Left
the approach is directly underneath, where they don't look at the verticality. I get that great teams can make it work. I saw that yesterday with Secret. Roll the sense out, have the cover, made sure they got the kills, operated well with the cap out. And that's like a by-the-book explanation of why people will do that. They see an opportunity at the bottom of green stairs, in the pillar position, they take it, great. But that's the 5% of teams.
It's not easy.
No, and the other 95 that seemingly want to try it have, I think, just failed every single time. That is the best defensive rated side across this map.
In fact, I tell you, I'll add to it, Em. Attacking without taking top floor there and using sense and the smoke cover and things, I will say, I feel that we've discovered the attacking equivalent of Tachanka defense on basement.
Okay.
It's got to be everything's got to be right. Everything's got to work. Yeah. Everything's got to be perfect, and it rarely all comes together.
That's a whole other argument that we'll get into in a minute. Knifing the roof won't do much, but Virtue does find the end of EFAC after they get a double, holding onto that position. The mirror, think about what they've taken out there, the hard breacher and the shield. At this point, they're operating with less, but they're still able to at least get a kill to level it out, but they're still utility-wise on the back foot. P4 is holding out for a follow-through swing. The Bees will go either side. They're onto display window, but they need to try and work in supporting each other. And Trico's been able to move up towards the upper window. Gets an easy pick onto Robbie. They know, look at the 3 remaining Falcons players. They've entirely surrounded this portion of the map. There's a spray through, and that's just Trico sort of saying, we're watching, that you can come in this way, but you're not going to last long. P4 is stuck, and they know that P4 was in this position, and they're trying to open him a way out that's not really coming together. Freck, in the meantime, is going to go right the way around towards the other side and just draw players away from the watch on towards that position. He's hoping they've all turned their backs. And as P4 slips their way out, a minute on, pre-firing the swing round angle, and more gadgetry being sent either side. There's at least a good preemptive spray on towards Shaiko's position. The C4 won't quite get the catch. The Bees will go in a bit close. It's time to sort of cook, but you can see P4 now has rotated their way back round underneath. Caught out on a camera. They know he's in this position. They know they're quite spread out. At this point, Falcons, they're just making sure that when the first fight comes together, they can be in a position to get a trade, and it seems like that pressure might be on towards both of them. P4 goes down first. Freck on a sliver of health, and they're just going to lock it out.
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm gonna repeat largely what I said last time around for that attack. They brought the Deimos this time. We didn't see it have too much of an effect. Don't get me wrong, that was down to a big leak effect double kill to kick things off. Never gonna hurt Falcons. But I know that Ace is banned out, but they're not bringing the Thermite. They're sort of relying on the Hibana. They're not bringing the Maverick. I just feel like they're not bringing enough. That is a site whereby you need some breachers, I feel. If you don't have any breachers, you're working through one of 3 single doors, and it makes makes it really easy for the defenders to just hold those positions. I feel like it's beneficial to get something on mask wall, to maybe get control of ops and be able to breach the wall into mask wall as well, or to get like a little R6 room breach, or to just, you've got to mix up the defensive angles on that site, and they haven't achieved that either time, whether that be from below, whether that be opening up those breaches. Every time it's kind of come down to pushing onto a door, and that's not going to cut it against Falcons, who managed to get themselves a good round 4. It's 2-2.
5 seconds remaining.
Well, a back and forth early on in this half. Maybe it's not as expected. At this point, BDS are, in a way, as successful as they were the last time they were on Lair. And they actually got a mirror image of the same rounds as well. I think it was the second and the third round. Granted, on their other half, they're on defense that they won, and then Falcons won everything else. So the curse might be repeating itself in some manner, unless they can try and just do a little bit more. It's also worth sort of looking at how, you know, Chalet played out. They were sharper on their attack in that game. They had a couple of sharp moments on their attack, but it was even between that and their defense. I would say BDS generically have been more confident on their attack throughout the maps in the showdown today. Got to try and cement themselves at least an even half here, I think, to sort of be able to put the pressure on, regardless of the fact that they're heading onto their defense as the follow through. They were half tempted by a bit of a smash on towards this position. Just, again, those sort of statement gunfights, thrown back and forth. The Ram could try and cut their way across the hold here, but again, look at Falcons, Tim. They just leave. They leave that position.
The second time will be the charm as the boogie drone goes through and opens up the barricade. The top floor is going to be in the possession of the attackers fairly soon, but we're halfway through the round. They need to be getting control over that mid floor. Let's not forget they're attacking into the basement. We do see them trying to do so, but Leakerback just catches out Virtue. Can't be losing that fight. Needs to be going in there and winning that. There's some support from users there as well, and these two are doing a great job of holding on to briefing. BDS just unable to break them down at the minute. Shaiko manages to find one, Brede another, and it is a round that is going all in favor of Falcons. Shaiko makes it 2 in the round, 5 versus 1, and in the blink of an eye, it is over. Flawless round. Falcons take another 3-2. With Munich on the line, this is becoming super tight.
Okay, shushes aside, what happened there was they obviously lost the shield, and what we saw happen, actually in the background of the Nook called, "I've got 2 on me," so the other 3 players went, well, let's hit site. A 3 versus 3, maybe we can make it work. Maybe there's someone else that might be adrift. But it was just easy. Look, they just rushed themselves in. All of them just sent it because they trusted that there was a fight, and then it was simple to be picked up there. They thought maybe more focus had been drawn over towards the Nook, and, you know, they'd confirmed 2 bodies there. Maybe they thought a third was out there and they had the numbers advantage on the site itself. Something went in their heads, we can just rush this. Like, we can just rush site. They won't expect it. No, Tim, they expected it. Oh, no.
Well, let's see what they expect here in round 6. We're going to find ourselves with the defense of bunks again. I think we will have a large top floor presence from Falcons again, and it looks like, I'm going to say looks like, we will have the same sort of approach from BDS. I hope last time they recognized why they had the success that they did, and that was that they went for that top floor clearance. They didn't allow Falcons to play up there, and they won those gunfights. You know, if they try to go directly into site here, they don't have what they need to do it, so they need to make sure that that is not the attempt. I don't think it will be. They don't manage to take the bulletproof cam, so that's not an ideal start for them.
We've seen problems that have been missed, unfortunately, by Bravo earlier on today. That was the other way around. And here, well, there's a bulletproof that will get caught out as well. It felt a little bit obvious what the Bravo was doing there.
It was a bold strategy.
There was a moment where I was like, okay, right, you can still keep moving. You don't have to just All right. Well, it's in that position. Now, remember last time they were successful by taking it clean above? That's a way of dealing with that bulletproof. It would be it's a nice bit of utility to have. The reason they wanted to steal it is when that wall's open, it would be hard to get rid of it from the defender side without having to use an impact or something. Talking of what is revealed, they're going for these positions. You can see that we're going to that sort of flat lateral take. Now, there isn't nothing above. Freck is on the far side on display window, just trying to apply some pressure towards the back of him. You do need to do that. You need to pull the focus away. That's one of my complaints, is that when that gets ignored as well, then you're really just not doing enough. They've got the air jabs above. They're sort of trying to find a first route in there. They don't feel confident enough to go for it because, well, they don't have anything to cover their motion outside of the 4 smokes. But as Freck goes down on display window, now they need to get him up before they can keep a watch on the back of this.
Charge. Stay clear.
They're going to open up the other side of sight. I think this is where we're going to see the acid test of what I've said, really. If you don't bring the utility, the smokes, the sense, the ying to be able to get yourself into this site and create that space to put the diffuser down, you're always going to struggle if you ignore that top floor hold, or that's at least what I would suggest. We're going to have the acid test of the truth of that, I think, here. With 30 seconds left to go, there isn't really time now for BDS to be looking at a top floor clearance. There's only Robbie up there. He moves down, so let's see whether they are able to manage it or not. They have some smokes this time. We hear a couple of those going off. Leak Effect manages to find one. The diffuser is not going down yet. 20 seconds. BDS still not confident that they've created the space, and there it is. Lasmo gets taken out with diffuser in hand as he tries to go in, and they have paid the price for ignoring the top floor. They didn't necessarily recognize the strength of their attack last time onto this side. What really worked for them. They didn't double down. They didn't try it again, and Falcons punish them. Shaiko picks up the final kill, and that is a 4-2 half on the defense to Falcons.
So my rant about that top floor. Have you ever heard any of my rants about that top floor and about that site?
I think I'm about to.
I don't know. I don't know how often you've cast that site on the approach.
You can't do it. You
across
can't.
multiple regions.
You can't do it like that.
I feel crazy, Tim, because I've cast it in pretty much every single region apart from NAL. It's the only region and OS that I haven't covered this split, and I've seen that exact approach multiple times. And I think I've only ever seen it succeed once without the pressure on the verticality, and that was by Secret yesterday, and they did it really bloody well. Fair play to them. But then I see the attacks where they go for the clears, where teams that haven't been able to clear it and go for the clears, and I know they're answering the problems. Again, this is entirely a rant that I messaged Pengu to ask him to explain this to me, but it's his birthday, and I don't want to bother him too much. Everyone say happy birthday to Pengu.
Happy birthday, Pengu.
Happy birthday, Pengu. But also, it's just because you see a team succeed at taking the top, and you're like, awesome. And then they go and do something like that, where they just don't feel prepared for what they're trying to do underneath. And I don't know.
Yeah, the reality, like I'll make the same comparison, that I did previously. We've looked in great depth at Tachanka defending on bank basement and the proliferation of that operator being used to do that, and a perceived lack of success from it. I think it's, in fact, I wouldn't even say necessarily a perceived lack of success. I would at this point say an open lack of success of Tachanka defending downstairs in basement. We understand the theory, the concept that he can deny more time. He can be better for that situation than Smoke. But I feel like the top floor clearance in this situation is the Smoke defense of bank. It's solid. There are reasons why it works more consistently, and you're not playing with those low percentages, and we've seen that here. BDS go in and clear top floor, they win the round, they get a plant, it's no surprise. They go in and they try to ignore the top floor and try to avoid the verticals, and they lose the round comprehensively. And like you say, it is rare, the occasion where a team will get away with it. It's not to say it's impossible, but it's rare. Not rare is the entry kills for Falcons. Solotov manages to get another, and that is now 6 out of 7.
Well, the clash is doing their best to try and delay and sort of push them back on. They're swinging either side. There's some support coming on the shoulder. And ooh, they slip away, and now they're back in, but the air jab will just execute them. And oh, the wheels are coming a little bit off here. Think about what they've just lost on the fight for ops. They've lost their keepers. They lose one bloody more, Tim. And Solotov tears the head off with a smoke. Every single sort of positive, active bit of utility they can do to slow people down outside of a C4 is gone. So instead, it's just guns up, fun time. As Robbie gets one, tries to get a handle on the other. It's technically a 1 versus 1. If he can win this, it buys him some time. But at the same time, this is just to draw focus. Look at Falcons. They know the win con. They're never a team to entirely throw themselves into a situation where they'll offer BDS a lifeline. You have to rest it. You have to pull it back in. And Robbie tried to. Movement in towards the fire. Virtue's under fire. He's in a 1 versus 4. Great take on towards Shaiko. But as the kit's being planted, the C4 won't come out immediately. There's the loose, and oh, there it is. Caught and covered. Massive round from Falcons. More shushing. And Brede having a great time with it.
He was allowed to plant. Of course he's having a great time. Look, the big difference there when we look at the Falcons attack versus the BDS attack of that top floor and why it worked. I spoke about it, if you remember, with BDS, not enough to disrupt the defenders, no breaching of those key walls. This time we saw that mask wall breached from the ops side. They got control, they killed the clash. Yes, they lost the ace just after the breach went off, but it didn't matter because the pressure was there. And where does Robbie get down from? He gets down from that breach inside a site. It makes it dangerous to play in those power positions. Yes, Falcons had already done a lot of the work, but they then took their foot off the gas a little bit and said, let's set up the site as we need it before we start getting this plant down. It was a really nice attack from them. They go 5-2, and I feel like we get into that point. If you remember at the very beginning of the game, I said BDS have had a fantastic little run at the end of the season. I think they've been playing really well. Their performance yesterday against Gen G is solid. Got themselves through to the upper bracket. I felt like today might just be that step too far in the upper bracket, and it feels a little bit now like they're running on empty. That last little bit of gas they had in the tank might just have run out.
The sort of surprise of this map, as weird as it is to say, is Shaiko 10-3. Because he's never got more than 2 kills on a round, right? It's been a really silent, consistent progression. And I know we had this conversation early on, it's not about putting in a superstar performance in a map. It's about putting in a superstar performance time and time and time and time again. And that consistency is key. And the dip in form towards just, this is his cruise control, is a terrifying thing.
Yeah.
The era of ARX Nomad.
It's like I said earlier on, you know, you look at, he has what, a wobbly first game and then still comes out with 35 plus kills over 3 maps, and he might not actually get the chance to hit 35 because Falcons might win this a little bit too quickly for him, but he's currently sat on 28 overall. It's been a pretty good series for him. He's leading kills for his team, and this was always going to be the problem. Yes, you can keep him quiet on Chalet, a map that Falcons aren't amazing on, but you know in the back of your mind, in a best of 3, he's going to come back at you at some point, and that is exactly what they're facing now, like you say. And it feels, particularly in this last one, the 10 kills he's got so far, it does feel like cruise control. I don't think I've said his name very many times in this late game so far, because it's just been so quiet and casual.
He just steadily puts it away. He's not had massive pop-off moments. He's not had, you know, as I said, anything more than 2K in a round, but over the 7 rounds, he's just kept cementing himself, kept cementing kills. And as the blind and the pressure come out, they do get the opening kill in towards their favor this time. Only their second of this map throughout it. And a shotgun makes friends with a shield, but P4, he's already used all of his smoke. So He's going to hold on, but look at Freck round on the back stairs as a blind comes in. There's a C4 over the top. Brede gets Freck on an easy pickup on the rotate, and Users gets P4. Uh-oh. Things are starting to fall away again. Shaiko gets one of his own before Lasmo is able to get some revenge. Leaves us in 3 versus 2. But if I'm going to say that things were taken out of the pockets of one team, now there's only really 2 pockets left. Ooh, Virtue swings onto the Blackbeard, removes their head, and now it's a Glaz and a Candellaless and Smokeless approach. Lasmo gets the cutoff, and now it is just a Glaz. EFAC. EFAC is 7-2-3 across this game so far. 10 seconds. The positions they've put themselves in. Think about where the kit is and where Virtue's gone to, especially a close swing round. Don't think he meant to do that, but he did that. And out of time to get the last kill. Still keeping themselves off of that eventual map point. Still a little bit of a distance to go.
Yeah, Virtue's won them around there. Brede was causing all sorts of problems with that Blackbeard. Just an absolute magnet for attention and focus. And the absolute beautiful little flick, the little swing that Virtue made to take that Blackbeard down. It was just totally reactionary, and you love to see it. And his movement afterwards as well, he recognised that the case has gone down, so he's moved himself in there quickly, because if he stood on top of the case, he's only got short angles that can challenge him from there. He can flip to the shotgun if he wants to. If that's, I don't know if that was his primary or not, but he just gives himself every opportunity to win the round. You see it there, just absolutely beautiful stuff. I think Brede maybe just getting slightly ahead of himself. He'd had some kills, he'd had some action, and he was thinking, I can drop the shield here, I can get another one, and he just gives that opportunity away. And Virtue did absolutely brilliant to lock that out. So BDS keep themselves fighting. It's 3-5 on the scoreboard. Round 9 we go into. Falcons on the attack, and it's going to be down in the basement this time that we see them attacking after a back-to-back. It's actually unusual for BDS. I've spoken about the site rotations that we see teams tend to follow now, regardless of win or lose. And I think, you know, part of that I've spoken about, it comes down to the banning system, and how, you know, if you struggle with a Blackbeard on the top floor, you can just think, well, we'll just ban it after round 3 and then we don't have to deal with it next time. So they just move through the choices anyway. But I think some of it's mentality sometimes as well, to say, you know, we've lost there, let's not go back there again, you know, just move on. Clear the mental, forget about it, you know, we move on. But I like to see that BDS are willing to give it another go, but it's not looking like a good start. Leakafak hits his 4th entry in the game out of 9 rounds. Absolutely phenomenal stuff from him to kick off the rounds.
Oh, he's
takes
so
down once more, and it's looking good for Falcons.
Yeah, so fired up as well. It's just the energy that he brings to this team. It was always that thing that was talked about for years. And we know his passion in the lowest of lows and the highest of highs. He will be screaming and shushing and joking, and he keeps the vibes energetic, I think is the fairest way of putting it. But as you can see from the smiles across this roster from the split they had, vibes are high. They get that opening body, they get rid of Lasmo. And now at this point, they've been able to remove who is the top performer on this map for the side of BDS, as well as good bits of the utility, Shaiko. No cap can to catch them around this time. So instead, they're free to pick up Banshees, Fenrir gadgets, and anything else that can be put ahead of them. Shield will start its steady roll in, down from the warehouse side. They've done a lot of the heavy lifting. But with the awareness that Freck is above, do they want to try and root him out, go for the take, and go for the pressure? Ooh, they don't even really have to. Outside the building, Users takes the head off of Freck, who thought he could try and win the engagement. Users disagreed.
There's going to come a moment here where Falcons realise that there's only 2 on site, and they're going to get aggressive and just push in. And I think that moment is now. The Blackbeard goes in, sends the nade, he's going to dislodge the Fenrir. Virtue does find one around the map, though it was always going to be a calculated risk, and the calculation is not adding up in their favour at the minute. But Shaiko, big double once again, opens up sight. It's all up to Virtue to fight his way back in, but he can't. It's that man again, Shaiko. 3 more in the round, and he puts Falcons one step closer to Munich. They need just one more, I
love the gesturing. I love the energy from both teams throughout this series. I mean, what a return to form, right? We sort of said it. First map, Shaiko struggled on Chalet, couldn't really get into it. Ended the map 5-12. Now, the best rated player in the entire series by a little bit of a distance. Plus 10 overall currently. It's just terrifying capabilities put into motion. And a tactical timeout. 1 round separates them from falling down to the lower bracket. 1 round separates them from having to, progress back into a brawl. As I said, I think they would have Wolves to have to go through. BDS, who had a really good showing. The best Wolves have played was yesterday up until a very fateful second half of a map I think they'd sooner forget. And it's not going to be an easy day at the office for BDS to have to try and get over that and get past that to get themselves in towards Munich. They know that they had Falcons a bit on the run, and having a top team a bit on the run is like, ooh, we could do this, we could take this, and then not getting it is frustrating because it feels like a missed opportunity to really prove yourself. In the meantime, credit to Falcons. From that first map to where we are.
There we go.
Where
We've
we'll
just
be
got
now.
a little rehost coming in, as we see, for a sound bug called there. So we'll get everybody out and back in. Usually quite a quick one. Look, Falcons. Yeah, I don't think there's any beating them now. If I'm honest, there's always maybe there's always there's always a chance, but I think given the way that Falcons are playing at the minute, can I see them not getting around in the next 3? I'd be very surprised. It will take a hell of a turnaround. Tac timeout has just come in. We've just had that previously. This is not what we're in now. This is a short tech pause. Prior to this, we had the little tactical timeout. We've seen, great effect from the tactical timeouts so far. Liloon's done a good job. We've seen it in the previous maps where BDS have come out and then got the next couple of rounds after that tactical timeout. So they're going to need that big impact, that big performance following that one, because there's no more mistakes now. It's 3 rounds in a row or nothing, is the reality. If they want to keep themselves in the running for a place for Munich today, they'll still be in it, even if they lose, as you've quite rightly said. They'll face up, we think, against Wolves. It'll be their next match, and the winner of that will qualify anyway. So they'll get another opportunity, another bite at the cherry. But if they want to get it done, if they want to get in bed tonight knowing that they've already booked their tickets, then it comes down to the here and now. But Falcons do seem to have just found that extra gear. Shaiko's up to 32 and 22 now across the series. He's going fantastically well. We've just seen him get a triple kill at the end of that round. It's that sort of moment that's, I feel, just going to push it over the threshold for Falcons.
Ooh, it's tense. But it's tense in a different way as to the ones that we sort of had at the end of the showdown yesterday, because I'm not going to say it feels like the fight is out of BDS. There's always a possibility, but it feels like the fight is so in Falcons, right? They're such a good team recently, as we've sort of seen, and any team that comes in at the top of a region is going to be a one to beat. And they're in a good bout of form. BDS on the other side of it, they've struggled with a sort of back and forth. They've not really been able to get themselves that consistency, and consistency is key, as they've always put it. And here again, it's almost the comments that I made very early on in the series of, we had a lot of pace, 3 hours ago, from BDS immediately going on their attacks, being in control. Their attacks have generally been the sharper side for them, and we had that with a lot of energy. And Falcons were a bit more relaxed. They sort of took Chalet as it came, and whether it was just rougher performance, whether it was just how they wanted to approach this, it doesn't matter, because the conversation is still the same of, they're a team that knows that this is a marathon. And sometimes that'll show itself, and sometimes it will, if it does show itself even, it will show itself now. It will show itself towards the end of the 3rd map, and we'll get in sooner rather than later. But a 7-3. The divide sort of cut themselves across. Or 6-3 even.
Yeah, there's a few solemn faces. Obviously, we're sat waiting now, but I think BDS they know what they're up against now. You know, they know that it's going to be a tough comeback from this point in. And I'm sure they want to just get back in the server and get on with it, you know, which we will be doing just as soon as we can. We'll just get everybody loaded back in, and that will be the case. Falcons certainly a little bit more light-hearted on their side.
I think it's always the thing as well of this timeout or this sort of tech problem immediately after your timeout isn't going to help you. You'll get yourself rallied up, you'll get yourself riled up, you'll get yourself in this conversation, and then you sort of sat there going, oh, okay, well now we've just got to sort of sit in silence and wait for this to go in. You want to keep the energy hot, you want to sort of keep that moving in, and it's a shame for it to happen at this point because it leaves you also sat thinking, well, we're on the precipice of 7-3, we're on the precipice of lower bracket. I feel like that can is endless. Every time we cut to him,
3 hours in.
3 hours in, every time we've got to him, he's either shushing or he's drinking from that can. So it's, I don't know, I just...
Like the old, was it in Viking mythology, the old bottomless horn?
Oh, what a dream that would be.
I think it was presented to Thor, I think. I could be wrong. I'm sure this... I could be wrong, but I'm sure that there's something in Viking mythology about
there he goes,
bottomless
drinking the can again. I do like the difference of the backgrounds. At this point, you've got Lasmo is sort of in a very calm place, nothing there, and you got P4 with Labubu's behind him, and pretty much every single bit of paraphernalia you could get for collecting anime and manga. He's a big fan of it, and just a single hat.
It looks like using all my, you know, esports player body language expertise.
Yeah.
I think everybody's getting ready to, I think the term is lock in them. They're ready to go, and I think we're going to be getting everybody back in pretty soon. So can Falcons do it at the first time of asking? That's, I think, you know, BDS are absolutely capable of coming back at them. I'm not personally sold that they will. You know, it's not to say that they're not capable. Falcons, it's one of them where I think you get it done as soon as possible. If this gets back to 6-5, then my money goes on to overtime. I think, you know, once you've got that little bit of momentum, once you've got that belief, you can get back into it. So Falcons need to make sure that they don't sell BDS a dream here.
Well, will it be a dream or a nightmare? We go back in for maybe one last time today. Maybe we'll get a little bit of a tear at the end on towards a site where we have had mixed stories of success. And like across over the recent days, I think this was also maybe one of the deciding rounds, if not the deciding round, of one of the secret maps yesterday as well. So trying to hold off against this approach. Which approach will Falcons go with? They've got the blitz, they've got the shield, they've got the chance of doing some calls and some pressure. Not entirely sure what's in the pockets, but we find out now. On the split of how they can get themselves in. A couple of smoke grenades. They've got all the idea of going for that sense replacement if they wanted to try and tuck into the control, but I feel like they'll want to hunt themselves a couple of players on the top floor, apply that pressure because they've been so good at doing just that. Get the breach open. This is always the first step, regardless of your modus operandi. Oh, in fact, no, it's direct. Right through the bottom. Uses in. He's off to the races and in towards the site itself. Just going to smash himself past the first gadget. Now he can see clearly now. The rain is gone, as has Freck. Solotov gets one. P4, though, cuts Usus in half. Very, very important kill. The shield may be overextended, but he just wanted to keep applying pressure. But, well, it wasn't an immediate follow-through. There's a narrow fight that Lasmo wins out. Onto Liquifact, but Solotov gets Virtue back in. A 3 versus 3. Pressure onto bottom of the green. But P4, he's still surviving around here. In the meantime, Solotov stuck and cornered. And capped off as Shaiko's inside the site, looking, hoping wistfully for something to happen. They know exactly where he is, and, well, they're not going for the individual swings. You can see them sort of preparing themselves for the engagement. Relay's going for the plant in the meantime. And Chaiko's like, oh, I should probably come and help. Behind the pillar, a post-plant situation. Now, we've seen BDS lose a similar situation like this on Chalet before. There's one, there's a slip away, and there's two! They got either side the trades, and oh no, Tim! Not like this happening again, a 1 versus 2, Robbie! Can't find it! Chaiko, bloody Chaiko! Keeps himself and the team going and shushes all round.